43rd year, of which Leominster has been a part for the whole period.
Okay, that's good to know.
And that, as far as I know, that's my understanding.
Okay. Okay, so the mayor brought this down to us at the last meeting under suspension of the rules, so we could
Thank
have
you.
it on our agenda tonight. So could you just give us a little bit of background, especially for the public, of what the Community Development Block Grant is, how people apply for it, how the amount of money that each city or town receives is allocated and, you know, decided, and whatever other helpful information you think you
Sure.
could give us.
Okay. So, the Community Development Block Grant in Leominster, we can use it in many different ways. The way that we've used it in Leominster, and we are planning to continue using it in year 43, is divided into several different groupings. We are able to fund several positions within City Hall with the money, including a code enforcement officer, an economic development coordinator, a portion of that, as well as a portion of the small business coordinator. We also fund what's known as an IDIS administrator. She's an administrator for the program as far as all the paperwork and that sort of thing. And I think that's it for staff. But then we are able to fund a number of public services. So these are nonprofits that are in and around Leominster, providing services to Leominster residents, among others. Several of them, just for informational purposes, include the Beacon of Hope, which provides services for people with developmental disabilities. What else do we have? Montechusett Home Care Financial Program provides financial education and services to elderly and disabled adults in the area. Montechusett Interfaith Hospitality Network, known as MIHN, provides services for homeless families, and they have a lovely home up on Main Street, I believe, where they're able to serve up to 5 families at a time, and they can provide them shelter as well as education, advice on resumes and transportation and things of that nature to help them get back into the community. Spanish American Center is a big provides a lot of services in what they call the core area. It's a target area for CDBG, and it generally consists of census tracts with low to moderate income population, where it is primarily. Allen Crest, which is a service of the Leominster Housing Authority, provides after-school services and educational opportunities in the Leominster Housing Authority property down in Viscoid F. We were able to help the YWCA provide violence prevention education, through the schools. And the YMCA is a program called WOW, the Working on Wellness. So this is over at the new facility on Adams Street. So they're providing after-school services with children to understand a healthy lifestyle, eating well, exercise, and that sort of thing. We also have a number of mayor's programs, including a summer youth program where we could provide funding for 6 youths to work for several weeks over the summer. And they have been responsible for a lot of the beautification downtown, weeding, picking up trash, those sort of things. They're out there working in the coming weeks. We provide heating assistance in the winter. That's been an ongoing program. We're able to provide help to about 30 so families heating funds. So those are some of the nonprofits and special programs that we have and we can fund. The other main component of the program through Leominster is what we call our housing rehab program. And these are monies allocated to folks who own their home but are in a low income bracket and are unable to provide basic services to their house, like roofs, windows, and that sort of thing, where rectifying these problems would be a hardship and could possibly end up with them no longer being able to live there. So that's a big portion of our program as well. So all these things together make up Leominster's CDBG program going forward in year 43. That's our plan.
Okay. So were we able to fund everybody that applied this year?
Yes.
Because I know I
Yes,
think last
that's my
year we were as well, right?
understanding. Yes. What we're able to do, we can, a certain portion of the entitlement, that's the amount of money we're awarded each year, can be put towards public services. And so, and we have the same general groups of people that apply, and the application process, I can get into that in a minute, generally takes place in the winter previous to the upcoming year. So what we can do is take their application and allocate funding based on our total amount that we can allocate to public services. So we can provide, we wish we could do more, obviously, but we can provide a little to each service that comes in and applies. And when we have a new program like we did last year with the WOW program for the YMCA, we're able to allocate funding for them as well and just make sure that we're providing for everyone in some fashion.
Okay. And I noticed a new one this year is the Leominster Fire Department Smoke Detector Program, right? Was that last year? Oh, I'm looking at the wrong
That
one.
was last year. Oh,
okay. So
I
then,
hope did I give you the year 43 one?
yeah,
Oh,
that's my
Okay.
error. So
Sorry.
going back, so why
Yes.
wasn't that funded this year then?
they didn't request it.
Okay.
Or, now I'm out backwards.
No, I'm confusing you, I think.
Sorry.
No, I'm looking at
The
year
working on wellness
43.
is,
Right.
yes.
I have them both
they
right
were
next to each
funded,
other,
yes.
so I'm confusing you.
Yes, the Boys and Girls Club have been funded in the past and did not request funds this year. That's,
Okay.
I may be confusing.
And could you go over the application process just a little bit?
Sure. In the winter, early spring, we have a public hearing, and we actually have two public hearings. One is to basically provide information to local nonprofits. And again, we get a lot of the same applicants, and they're very familiar with the process. Then we have a second public hearing, in which we call it with the presentations. And so each nonprofit would, they have to, let me back up. They can obtain a application, and it's a simple form they can fill out. It explains what their program is, the funding they'd like to request, the number of people they anticipate helping that year, and some other details. They then submit that to us by a certain deadline. Say, I think February 1st was around the time this year. Soon after, we have another public hearing, at which point the nonprofit representative will give a presentation in the public hearing regarding their proposal. And then once that's, and this is in front of a committee of folks who will evaluate the proposal and provide their input as to how they would allocate the funding. And then we pull all the committee members' recommendations together, come up with a final number per applicant, and we go from there.
Okay. Okay, good. All right. Thank you very much. So I'll open this up to questions from the other counselors. Any questions? Councilor Shalfo-Zephyr.
Thank you. Yep. Thanks very much, Kristen. I have a question for you. Did Battered Women's Program, did they apply for funds? Because they were on last year's list, but not on this year's list.
They did. They are calling, it's the Violence Prevention Education Program.
And that's Battered Women's.
Yeah, it's
Formally.
YWCA, it's a division of the YWCA,
Yep.
but the program itself is the Violence Prevention Education. So I've made a few tweaks to the form, so I apologize if it looks not, it is comparable. It's the same program as the previous year.
No, that's great. Thank you for that clarification. But I do have some other questions, because just in comparing this year to last year, there's a big shift. Big shift in planning and administration has gone up. The salaries have gone up. The expenses have gone up in that category about 15%. And the housing rehab funds have been reduced by almost 20%. And housing rehab funds specifically, I mean, housing rehab, that category, the $94,694, that's reduced, I think, 22,000? Yes, yeah, by over $22,000, 19%. And the housing rehab fund line specifically is reduced $25,000. Last year, it was $85,892, almost $86,000. And then this year, it's $60,000. So I was wondering about those big shifts.
Yes. I understand it's a substantial change to these numbers. What I found is when I put together this document, And in going back in previous years as to the items being funded and the way that they're sort of presented here, I realized that the where is it? Let's see. What it is one of the benefit line items. It was not called out separately and was being associated with the housing rehab program. So what I had done here is call out more specifically, I don't have my year 42 thing, but call it more specifically that benefit line item. It has always been part of the budget. It's just been allocated in the housing rehab portion of the budget.
Is that administration benefits? In the year 43 program, right up top, the third line, it's 4,900? Which doesn't look like it's not on the prior
No.
year, so that's a $5,000 benefit line item that I don't see on the prior year.
It is, I thought I found it earlier when I was looking for it. So let's see, code enforcement. I also have a comparative chart here. So code enforcement, for example, this year is listed at 91,000 for the entire code enforcement program.
Right,
Last year was allocated 82,000.
right.
The
right.
change in there is accounted for by the benefit line item that was not listed there last year.
No, I'm looking at last year. I see a benefit line item. It was $19,214. This year, it's $23,000. So it went
Yeah.
up by almost $4,000, but it was there.
Yeah, yeah,
The only place I think benefits were added
yeah.
is in that top group of line items, the third line down, administration benefits. 4987, I couldn't find that on the prior year. So it's about a $5,000.
That is what, yes, that is one of
Difference.
them. That's one of the benefits. There's benefit,
Mhm.
let's see, there's insurance. So one is the pension and one is the insurance. So for the admin benefit, that is for the pension,
The 4987?
yes.
Okay, so that's new. That's a new line item.
It's a new line item in this table, and I
Okay.
believe it was being taken from the housing rehab section before. This is, again, I've been going through just trying to get more familiar with things. I think it was just the way it was illustrated on here. I'm not 100% sure. But I brought it out here to be more clear exactly what the expenses associated with the admin salary and the other salaries are.
Right, so planning and administration, if you look at that top category, the 63,448,
Yes.
that's gone up almost 15%, 14.7%. Code enforcement agent, that $91,000, 91,597, that's gone up over 10%.
Yep.
Economic development has gone up 4.9%. Then under housing rehab, the housing rehab program has actually gone down 19%.
It's, again, it's more reflective of where the money for the, say, the administrative benefit was coming from.
Well, in the housing rehab fund line, if you're under housing rehab, it's the one,
Yes.
two, three, the fourth line, I think. $60,609, $60,000, $60,609. Last year, it was $85,892. So it's a $30,000, $25,000, excuse me, difference. So, you know, in looking at this, it looked to me like a lot of the cost shifting went into salaries and benefits, and a lot of the programming expense was cut. There's less money going into programs.
Understood.
I mean, even public services, all of those, you know, the programs Beacon of Hope,
Yes.
Spanish American Center, all those folks. I mean, that's a 1.6% increase. It's 63,000 this year and $62,000 last year.
Yes.
So I'm just trying to figure out why it looks like there's such a dramatic shift to administration and salaries and less spent on programming.
I understand. I understand how this looks. What I would need to do, because unfortunately it kind of goes back a couple years. I just think it was misallocated in past years, and I'm trying to bring and group position-associated costs together. And I just don't know, and I may be completely wrong about this, it's just how I'm trying to learn about how this program is run in the past and, what I'm seeing. I'm definitely trying to make sure that it's clear, but I can definitely go in and get additional information about why it's different, what exactly are these costs, and how were they allocated in the past.
That would be really helpful.
Yeah.
And it would be really helpful for me to understand specifically the housing rehab program.
Absolutely.
How much was spent, how much was allocated, how much is
Yes.
being budgeted.
Absolutely.
Because there's always, I understand, and, the clearer,
I know.
it gets, it's just more helpful.
I do
but-
understand. One thing
okay.
I can also do is provide a breakdown of the costs that have been paid out for housing rehab for the specific projects.
Yeah,
and
see, that would be really
you know,
helpful.
even from the past few years. so
By
you can see
fiscal
how
year.
it is. Yes.
Yeah, that would be really helpful,
Yes,
Kristen, thank you.
I'd be happy to do that.
Thank you.
Any other councilors? Council Marshall?
Counselor, did you mention evolving account also, Counselor? Okay, so can we add to that? There's an account established where if someone refinances or sells their property, or it's even transferred within the family, then the money comes back to the city.
Yes.
So, the hope in that account is that there'll be enough money built up that in a situation where you need to tap into it for further rehabilitation, it's available. So if we could find out if there's a balance on that account,
Yes.
and in fact, if that plays into the lower number of rehabilitation today from what it appears to be compared to maybe 5, 10 years ago from that point. The other question I have too, God, we're hearing all kinds of things on the federal level about CDBG. And I've brought this up several times over the years with the mayor in session here when we're talking about what would happen if. And what would happen if, for example, the code enforcement officer was funded by CDBG, but the program was cut. That would leave us in a very compromising position. At one time, we had a code enforcement person who was in charge of enforcement, and we had 2 code enforcement inspectors. And what happened was those inspectors were actually, the inspectors, one was complemented by the city budget, and the other one was CDBG. And what happened over the years was the city one was eliminated and the CDBG one, even though, for example, you talk about a specific core area, that doesn't necessarily happen because we know that in reality that person's needed to go outside the core as well. An example of that would be Section 8 housing does not necessarily happen in the core area. It can happen in any part of the city with a willing property owner. So I'm concerned that we're probably at that tipping point finally, and that there is a vision in order to be able to maintain that position in the budget if in fact that is eliminated altogether. And for that, with that in mind also, going back to the essential question regarding the evolving account, would the evolving account be able to sustain the rehabilitation program if there's enough money in there, if we do have a situation where CDBG is either cut or reduced significantly on a federal level? So that's just the point on that right there. So we don't have a lot of applicants apparently for the CDBG money compared to years ago. I remember seeing a couple of sheets of people who would apply for the funding. And what's happened is a very limited group here with a very limited amount of money. It's good to see that we're servicing them.
You speak
But,
of the nonprofits?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So I'm just wondering on the marketing point, is it the other organizations are in a situation where they don't need the money any longer? The Boys Club might be a typical example of that, where now that they're self-sustaining and they don't need funding, so the money's used for another purpose. So I'm just curious to see, you know, at one time we might have had 30 applicants, and now we're down to just a handful, and they're all getting it, and, you know, if there's anybody that's slipping through the cracks.
That I'm not sure about, because
Yeah.
my familiarity was only within the past,
Right,
couple years, and then familiarizing myself
right.
with the few years before that, but we've had the same general group. I'm not sure about
Right, we're
who
just
may
helping you
have.
with it,
Yeah,
from our
We
own
could certainly,
institutional memory, that's all.
we
So-
could certainly be advertising it better.
That's
Maybe
good.
to get people to be able to apply when the time
Right.
comes. Again, we can only spend a limited amount of money
Right.
on those public services,
Right.
but, we want to do our best to help whoever,
and I guess
whoever
the-
we can.
And Chris, and I appreciate that, and I think probably the other becomes a tipping point on how much money can be used for administration, how much money can be used for the program.
Yeah, it's true.
See, I don't know where we are with that usual, I'm sure it's within the compliance, but I just want to make sure that, and
Yeah.
I've mentioned this before, if we could extract code enforcement and put code enforcement into the city budget, that's going to free up more money for you to be able to work with more agencies or for housing rehab. That's my position.
Absolutely. We are
Okay?
limited by the 15% cap for the public services.
Right.
Which is why if there are any, like you mentioned, refinancing or payoffs, that we do put that towards the housing rehab, because there's no cap on that, and then we can reach more people with that program.
Yep.
And obviously, it's been a topic of conversation in my office, what might happen with the CDBG program, because obviously, there's been a lot of discussion as to whether it will be cut from the federal budget. And so obviously that impacts really a whole lot of people, from our salaried staff to our nonprofits and the people that they help, and the housing rehab folks. And so we'll be finding out within, the next couple months as they finalize the budget this would be for the city's FY19, which would be year 44 of this program, what's going to happen with that program. We really just don't know. It could get cut. It could entirely. It could get cut by a percentage. I believe the plan is, if it's cut by a percentage, then we have to reduce everything by a certain percentage. But when we have salaried staff that are supported fully or partially by the program, we do have to then look at what we would do staffing at that point.
Right. Okay, all right, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Any other councilors?
Kristen, just out of curiosity, it's referring to what the councilor mentioned, in terms of refinancing, and you still have, whose authority is it to subordinate the loan? I know in some cases, if there's not enough to just refinance and you get a lower rate, is it your decision?
It's up to a committee. There is a
a
committee.
committee?
It's made up of myself, the mayor, the health inspector, and the health, Chris Knuth and Ann Kramer, I believe. And so we would review an application for subordination. And basically what that means is if, again, these homes are owned by folks in a low-income bracket, and if they have an opportunity to refinance their home to do something, to better their lives, we may choose to not make them pay the lien. And the mechanism for that is subordination with the mortgage company. So it is at the committee's discretion to basically make that, they don't have to pay it if that will help them in another aspect of their lives. If they're selling their house, moving on, then they can pay the lien off and move forward. But that is evaluated on a case-by-case basis by the committee.
I know it's always been that way, I was just wondering if it still was.
Okay.
And when the liens are put on the property after rehabilitation, is that, those legal fees come out of the city, or do they come out of administration?
The legal fees, or the city, through the program, will cover the recording fees for recording the lien. If they choose to subordinate the loan, we aren't covering any legal fees.
And that would include title as well? I mean, I assume you do a title search on a
Yeah,
property
that's
before you
part
do a
of,
rehab.
that's part of the service we provide.
And when you, after the hearing and you put the list together, does the committee make the final decision? That final decision is made by the mayor ultimately, correct?
Decision for what?
Once the list is, after the hearing's done and the committee decides on
For
where
the
they want to see the money
subordination?
get dispersed, does it go to the mayor for a final decision?
Yes, the mayor is
Because
the,
it's still basically a mayor's program, right?
yes.
I mean, it's a
Yes,
federal
he is, I
program for
believe,
mayors
listed.
of communities.
Yeah, he is listed as the, I forget the exact title, but he is the CDBG,
Right.
call it coordinator or point of contact for the city, yes.
All right, thank you.
Okay, thank you, Kristen. Seems like you always have the tough duty.
Well-
You always do a good job.
Trying to do better each year, we'll see.
Yeah, I would ask that you come back with some of these, some of the explanations, that perhaps we can have an identification of who some of these administrators are that are listed on here.
That I can provide you now if that helps.
Okay, go ahead.
Okay,
Mhm, sure.
that part I can. So you're talking about the staff?
Yes.
Folks that are funded?
Yep.
Okay. In the admin, our IDS coordinator is Ellen Racine,
Okay,
and she's full-time funded by this grant. Code enforcement officer is Ann Kramer, and she is funded full-time through the grant.
okay,
Economic development, Lisa Maroney is our economic development coordinator, and she is funded 80% by the grant.
Okay.
And our small business coordinator is Melissa Tasca, and she's funded 20% by the grant. We also have a housing rehab specialist, what they call it. It's a half-time position. It's not currently staffed, but the half-time position is covered by this grant. And there are several stipends that are provided, and they are listed here. One for the rehab secretary, that's Ellen. One for the general secretary, that's Stephanie Witten, is my planning clerk. And I have a stipend, and I think that's it. And that's all the salary, the staffing funded through the program, yes.
okay. Council Shalfo Zephyr has an additional question.
Thank you. So right now, who is accepting applications for loans if the position is not staffed? The housing rehab coordinator is not staffed?
We have been managing that. There hasn't been a lot of activity in that, and we have the job posted right now. But Ellen has been the housing rehab secretary for 8 years.
Right.
And is very familiar with the program, which has been very helpful, so she's keeping us moving forward a little bit before we can find someone who can actually take the position and the responsibilities.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Okay, thank you, Kristen.
Thank you.
My name is Claire Frieda, Chair of the committee, along with Councilor Feckley from Ward 1 and Councilor Cormier from Ward 2. I'm going to open the hearing for public comment, although there has been a request by the petitioner to give leave to withdraw. So with that, is there anyone who wishes to speak in support of this petition? Again, is there anyone who wishes to speak in support? Third time, is there anyone who wishes to speak in support? Is there anyone who wishes to speak in opposition? Again, is there anyone who wishes to speak in opposition? For the third and final time, is there anyone who wishes to speak in opposition? If not, I declare the hearing closed. and Central Street, Route 12, and continuing approximately 2,500 feet in a westerly direction. Also, approximately 400 feet of concrete encased conduits and one manhole on west side of Central Street, Route 12, from pole 150-5. National Grid to petition for approximately 2,500 feet of concrete encased conduits and 9 manholes currently in Research Drive that were installed when the road was private, as well as 3 new roads crossing from manholes 4, 7, and 8. Again, we've also been asked to give this leave to withdraw during the meeting, but I will ask if anyone wishes to speak in support of the petition. Again, is there anyone who wishes to speak in support? The third time, is there anyone who wishes to speak in support? Is there anyone who wishes to speak in opposition? Is there anyone who wishes to speak in opposition? For the third and final time, is there anyone who wishes to speak in opposition? Are there any councilors that have any questions or comments? If not, I declare the hearing closed.
Council, petition 8217, Carolyn A. Parker for NJLJ Properties LLC, grant a license to store a total of 35,000 gallons, of which 26,000 gallons is gasoline and 9,000 gallons is diesel fuel at 180 Central Street. Will the petitioners come in? Good evening.
Good evening.
Mr. Rowe, we know who you are, but if you could introduce yourself for everybody in your party as well.
Good evening. Jamie Rowe from Whitman and Bingham Associates.
Mickey Higgins with NJLJ.
And I'm Heather Monacup with Greenman Peterson.
Mr. Rowe, you want to just give us a brief summary of what you're proposing and where it's going to be?
Sure. The council is well aware we've been before you in the past. At the corner of Graham Street and Central Street, we are proposing a convenience store, gas station, and fast food drive-through. We came before the city council quite some time ago and asked the council to rezone the property to commercial, which was done. Since then, we've attended the planning board and received site plan approval and a special permit for the project. So we're fully permitted, absent this permit, and we're here before you seeking permission to grant a license to store 35 gallons, which 26 gallons is gasoline and 9,000 gallons is diesel fuel, located at 180 Central Street.
And just for people who are here and people who might be watching on TV, if you could just describe exactly where 180 Central Street is.
Sure. If you're coming from the Department of Public Works on Graham Street heading towards Central Street, you'll come to a set of lights. On the left-hand side, there'll be a CVS store. On the right-hand side, that's the locus of the property.
Okay. Before I open it up to questions, I do have a couple of recommendations from the 2 departments we referred this to. Christopher Knuth, the Director of the Board of Health, writes, letter dated July 19th, 2017, addressed to the city clerk. Dear Ms. Bouchard, the Leominster Health Department has reviewed the proposal to allow NJLJ Properties LLC to store 26,000 gallons of gasoline and 9,000 gallons of diesel fuel at 180 Central Street. We have no objections to the proposal to utilize underground storage tanks to store and market petroleum products at this location. There are no sensitive receptors in the immediate area, and the secondary containment systems utilized today are vastly superior to the former methods used to contain and store petroleum products. We hope the Legal Affairs Committee of the City Council finds our revised comments useful in their evaluation of this petition. Please feel free to contact our office if you need further information or if anyone would like to discuss our opinion. Sincerely, Christopher J. Knuth, Director of the Health Department. We also have a letter from the Fire Chief, Robert A. Sidlow, Chief of the Leominster Fire Department, dated June 28th, 2017. And it's also addressed to the city clerk. Dear Ms. Bouchard, pursuant to the request for recommendation from the Legal Affairs Committee on the above captioned petition, please be advised that I do not have any concerns or opposition to the petition. If you have any further questions, please contact me. Thank you. Sincerely, Robert A. Sidlow, Chief. Do any members of the Legal Affairs Committee have any questions? Councilor Frida, I'll go around.
Jamie?
Hey.
Have I noticed in the bank on tradesmen, a couple of the transfers took place. So that ownership's already done. How about the surrounding people that, I know it's not directly related to the storage, but, just curious as to how the reception is.
So the three transfers have taken place. One on Graham Street, two on Central Street. And the one at the corner of Central, and is it Central Court? That's still under agreement.
Okay,
Yeah, and that's moving forward.
all right. No testing's been done there at all yet?
Testing?
Any environmental testing, or it has been done?
Yes, we did a full environmental site assessment with 4 observation wells, soil samples, and water samples, and everything there is clean. And then just to add on to what Jamie said, the last piece that we haven't closed on is McCarthy's, which is on the corner. That's scheduled to close this Wednesday, based on, assuming that tonight goes well. But the closing is scheduled.
What's the square footage of the property again? The building that you're gonna put up?
So the property itself, land area, approximately 45,000 square feet. And the building area, Mickey?
Just under 4,000.
I'm sorry?
Just under 4,000 square feet.
And is this pretty much the comparable to storage for that type of a facility?
Those tanks are they vary every site to site. When you approve the last site that might have been here for city council storage license was the Cumberland Farms. Cumberland Farms, their typical layout is 2 20,000 gallon tanks, 40,000 total. This is a little bit less than that. Typically, everybody puts 20,000 gallons of regular unleaded in, and in this case, there'll be a 20,000 gallon tank and a 15,000 gallon tank. The 15,000 gallon tank is split into compartments. There'll be 9,000 gallons of diesel fuel and 6,000 gallons of super unleaded. So it's a little less than the Cumberland Farms.
Thank you.
Councilor Marchand?
Tough to read the blueprint, but can you explain where the tanks are located and also what your delivery times will be, off hours, on hours, et cetera?
So,
If you touch on the site plan, I'll go
Sure.
over the delivery times.
sure. So I don't know what plan you have in front of you.
The one you submitted
Okay.
to the
So-
council.
So, the curb cut off of Central Street, if you come in from that curb cut directly to the left, that's where the storage tanks will be located.
Are they backing in or coming in straight?
Nope, so the turning radius that we have for the project is actually, they're going to come down Central Street, travel north, take a right at the lights, and they're going to take a left into the property from Graham Street. They're gonna travel straight through in front of the building and turn left, fill, and then exit through Central Street. Everything works fine with the turning radiuses for that path.
Delivery time?
Delivery time is generally for these service stations, the majority of your deliveries, the vast majority, are first shift or second shift for drivers. When you have bad weather, storms, snowstorms, you can get deliveries after hours. But the vast majority would be 6 in the morning till 6 at night.
So anytime during the day for the most part.
Generally, yes.
What do you anticipate? What do you anticipate? I mean, there are rush hours and there's a lot of traffic and
The delivery
you have customers. too.
Delivery of gasoline, those tanker trucks are still all, for this area, still all come out of Boston, so it's crazy. But the majority, based on rates, majority of your deliveries, the vast majority happens 6 to 6. But when you have storms and weather, not just storms here, but storms out in the ocean that prevent barges from getting into Boston and whatnot, those trucks do stack up in Boston, they do wait to be loaded, and they get there when they can get there.
Okay. There are 4 competitors in that corridor that you'll have. So the question I raise is that if you have the success that you hope you do, are you going to be coming in for larger storage tanks at one point? Or how does that affect your delivery?
It would be more frequent deliveries. It would be very, very unlikely that we would come back and ask for additional storage.
Okay.
The tanks, as I'm sure you know, are below grade. We do a forecasting model. We're pretty good at it, and it would be very unlikely that we'd come back and ask for more.
Okay. All right. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Marchand. Councilor Bedanza, any questions? Councilor Zephyr, go ahead.
Thanks very much. When you were here last time, I think you said that this building, the 4,000 square foot building, same size as the one over on the far side of Orchard Hill Park. Is that right?
In Lunenburg?
In Lunenburg, right.
That's correct.
Same size building. What size are the tanks over there?
I believe they're the exact same size.
You don't know that definitively, but
I bought them, I put them in. I could say
You're pretty sure?
90%, they're the exact same size.
okay. All right, thank you.
Any other councilor have any questions? Does any member of the audience wish to address the council in favor of this petition? Second time, does any member of the audience wish to address the council in favor of this petition? Third and final time, does any member of the audience wish to address the council in favor of this petition? Does any member of the audience wish to address the council in opposition to this petition? Second time, does any member of the audience wish to address the council against this petition? And third and final time, does any member of the audience wish to address the council in opposition to this petition? Last call, councilors. Anybody have a question, comment? Seeing none, Mr. President, declare the meeting closed.
Okay. Can you go get me the paper?
Excuse me, could you tell me what's going to happen moving forward? Will you have another meeting later on? Will you vote on it later on today?
I believe that I'll be prepared to issue a recommendation later today,
Thank you.
this evening, yeah. And if we can, we'll try to move it to the top of the agenda.
Thank you.
Okay, we are now going to hold a public forum. The public forum is to allow any person in the audience to speak on any matter listed on the council agenda. The members of the city council will not be answering any questions, but will be listening to the opinions expressed by the speaker. Please limit your comments to 2 minutes or less. And I do have my stopwatch this evening, so I am gonna really be limiting it to 2 minutes or less. And I'll let you know when you have about 15 seconds left, and it'll be time to wrap up your, what you want to convey to us. So we do have a list of people that has signed up. The first one is James White. Please step to the podium and state your name and address for the record.
My name is James White. I live at 606 Main Street, 3B, Leominster. I was born in this town. I'm 75 years old now. And I cannot get housing for myself. And they're cutting back on the applications. Why is it so long to be received before the length of time? I mean, I have low income, $1,200 a month, And out of that, $600 has to go for rent, which I'd probably be paying $450 if I was in senior housing. And I'm not getting in. And I think the mayor could have helped me with it, and possibly you people with the council. I don't know what you got against me, but I feel you have. So that's my story for now. Anybody any questions?
We can't answer
Okay.
any questions right now. Thank you. Okay, the next person is Tracy Cavaco.
Good evening, members of the City Council, teachers among me, and the City of Leominster residents. My name is Tracy Cavaco, and I teach second grade at Fallbrook Elementary School. Please let me begin by thanking all of you for your efforts. I can't begin to imagine the position you find yourselves over the current issues over our school budget. I want to speak as one of your concerned employees and comment on the following. On Friday, Mayor Mazzarella stated on social media, "Update on fixing the problem. Our plan addresses LEAP and fixes the problem with students in the auditorium. But it does take financial resources away from other important projects in the city. Stay tuned." Then I received a Connect Ed message from the superintendent stating the same. While I truly appreciate everyone working together, here are the realities that creates for my colleagues and I at Fallbrook. Last year, we had 6 sections in the first and second grade, with 22 to 25 in each. With the cuts, presently we have 4. So yes, when we say 30 students in each section, this is a verified fact for us. With our community of learners, we always have numerous immigrants sign up for school when we are in session. So we are certainly in the realm of reality to state we will potentially see 10 to 20 more students be placed in our 4 sections. LEAP is an accelerated program designed to challenge students who achieve high test scores. Each year, downtown accesses second grade data and directly sends letters to these parents. We have no say in the students' performance in the classroom, their ability to work with others, or their learning patterns. Have my students been selected? Of course. Yet I have not promoted this. I teach to every student. This includes challenging exceptional
You have
learners.
About 15 seconds.
The newcomer program supports any student who enters the district, regardless of where they live in the boundaries of Leominster. It is the law they receive small group explicit instruction in reading, writing, listening, and speaking anywhere from 2.5 to a half hour per day from an ELL specialist. Their level of instruction, newcomer through level 6, is determined by access scores. They do try very hard to listen and speak, yet often become frustrated. Because our students' parents cannot advocate for them due to language barriers, I stand in front of you, assisting, vocalizing their concerns. We have at least 20-plus students, one each first and second grade, who fall into the level newcomer through 2 category. There are approximately 30 additional students who work at higher levels 3 through 6. Once they achieve level 3, usually in 3 to 4 years, then they go back to their home schools. There's a large influx of additional students throughout the year, and we see these groups increase rapidly because they are constantly arriving in this country. They are required to take their MAPs, their PARCS, and their MCAS scores regardless of what level they are. Presently, we now have 2 teachers for 167 students. The behavior programs that we also house supports emotional medical diagnosis, or IEP, individuals.
Can you summarize
Yeah.
the rest? And
So-
if anybody has any long things to read, if we can
I
get
didn't think it was really going to be
if we
that
can
long,
get a-
sorry.
If we can get a copy of them too for the public record. And we can
Absolutely.
all review them after as well.
Yeah, I
Thank you.
sent it to the whole school committee, so I am more than willing to send it to you.
Okay.
Long story short, we now are really in big trouble at Fallbrook because the $895 that was allocated, that we completely appreciate, has been given to a specific group that legally we don't have to support. We do have to support legally the behavior students with emotional IEP, and we have to support the ELL students, the newcomers that we specifically house in Fallbrook. So I just ask that you rethink giving the $895 to a specific group and maybe all 4 of us, please.
Okay, thank you
Thank
very
you.
much. And can you state your name and address for the record as well?
Tracy Cavaco,
Okay.
113 East Gardner Road, Westminster.
Thank you very much. And I don't mean to be rude by cutting anybody off, but I just want people to understand, you know, what our role is, and we want everybody to be heard. That's why I'm asking 2 minutes. You know, once we appropriate money to the school department, we have no say over what programs are going to be implemented, reinstated, you know, cut. So I just want everybody to understand that we will vote, if we vote in favor of this money tomorrow, what will happen is there'll be a transfer to the school department, and then the superintendent will spend the money as he chooses and will implement what he chooses. So I just want everybody to be aware of that. Next person is Mary Caffarella.
Mary Caffarella for Prospect Terrace here in Leominster. I'm here tonight to plead on behalf of the students and teachers here in Leominster. I have 2 daughters, one entering 9th grade and one entering 7th grade at Skyview. And my family and I are appalled by what might happen if the teachers are not rehired. Not only my husband and my daughters, but my family that don't even live here. They have seen the videos, read the articles, and have said, that is not teaching my children, but hurting my children and all of our children. My oldest just finished LEAP, and my 7th grader was told, as was my oldest, when they entered LEAP, that they would be in those classes through and including 8th grade. The thought of losing it is appalling. My youngest is torn between wanting her LEAP classes and wanting the arts. Last year, as a 6th grader, she was in select chorus, was in 6th grade band, and was one of 5 6th graders in the jazz band, and was the only trombone player in jazz. She loves her teachers. She loves music. And she can't see school without these activities. She also wants to see the middle school musical because she has a passion for it. These children, I know everybody has an opportunity to learn. All students deserve a well-rounded education. But when something is promised, whether it's my kids, your kids, anybody's kids, if you promise them something and you promise their parents something, they deserve it. Back in December of 2015, the Every Student Succeeds Act was passed. And my point on this one is that it includes music as an important component of a well-rounded education. Please see it in your hearts and in your minds to vote for any monies that the mayor appropriates for the schools so that the schools can do what's right for our children. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Victoria Mealy.
My name is Victoria Mealy, and I live on Day Street in Leominster. I just celebrated the completion of 5th grade at Johnny Appleseed Elementary School, which I attended since kindergarten. During my 6 years at JA, I enjoyed being in classes with a variety of students, including kids who learn differently, and kids from different parts of the world. It was always fun when Raheem went back to Pakistan or Jacob to Korea for a visit and then came back to school with stories from their home countries. I also enjoyed spending time with my friends from the developmental classroom. Sabrina and Elijah always joined us for specials, recess, and lunch, as well as the other educational activities. During these times, I was able to see for myself how important it was for them to have an aide. The aide helped them if they and when they needed it, but they also stayed out of the way when we were just being friends hanging out. What frustrated me was when the aide changed throughout the school year. I saw this especially with my friend Sabrina. Every time there was a new aide, that person would have to learn from the beginning how to communicate with Sabrina or how to support her self-care or social skills. I saw how frustrating it was for Sabrina to have to train her new aide as they struggled to get to know each other. As a student going into 6th grade at Skyview Middle School, it is important for me to know that all students will have the supports they need to be the best students they can be. People with developmental disabilities learn differently, and their learning opportunities are just as important as mine. I believe that it is especially important to give students with special needs the education and help they need. These students are motivated learners capable of many things. Many of these students are brilliant and have great minds. They just have trouble expressing themselves. I have been a volunteer partner and coach with Special Olympics Gymnastics for 4 years. Through my time at Special Olympics, I have gotten to know many adults with special needs. I realize that my friends with special needs are more similar to me than different. We enjoy many of the same activities and have similar life goals: to work, live independently, and never stop learning. I also realize how important it is for them to learn as much as they can in school to help them succeed later in life. This is why it is so important for the City of Leominster to meet the needs of all our students, especially the students with special learning needs. If all the students get the help they deserve, they will excel and have great experiences. I believe that in every disability, there's an ability.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Okay, Carrie Mealy?
My name is Carrie Mealy. I'm at 196 Day Street in Leominster. And I've heard the mayor on several occasions make reference to the importance of the city's bond rating. And if I understand him correctly, the city's bond rating is very important for our ability to borrow money at a lower interest rate for future projects. Many people have asked why we can't use the tax revenue surplus, aka free cash, to supplement the school budget. And if I understand the mayor correctly, that free cash fund is intended to be used for one-time expenses, not recurring budget expenses. It is also my understanding that using free cash to shore up the school budget shortfall might compromise our bond rating. If we can all agree for a moment that the high bond rating is our highest priority as a city, then my question is this: how will a failing school system impact our bond rating? Because if using free cash might compromise our bond rating, we also have to believe that underfunding our schools might compromise our student performance. Furthermore, how will an increased number of lawsuits by families of children whose legal rights under IDEA are not being met impact our city's bond rating? It seems to me that having a well-funded, high-performing school district that meets the needs of our diverse student population might be an effective strategy to help us reach our goal of a strong bond rating. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay, next is Bonnie Budd.
Hi, my name is Bonnie Budd, and I reside at 321 Prospect Street. I'm here before you to plead for a yes vote on all the school appropriations that you have before you tonight. You are the lifeline to the students at this current moment. While the money is not enough, it is desperately needed. We are in a crisis, and the skies are in agreement this evening that it is raining on education in Leominster. We're not even close to being ready to open our doors for the students next month. We need all our children, all our students properly educated and effectively educated by law. We're not properly set up to educate them or address their needs, which also encompass the social and emotional aspect. We need education as a priority in Leominster. Let's make sure we're giving children of all abilities the best opportunities with robust course offerings that encompass advanced learners and support for all who need it. Well-rounded with music, arts, extracurriculars, and sports. The children of Leominster Public Schools should not be punished for the coming year due to improper funding and planning. It's not their fault, so their education should not be compromised. We can't expect after 10 years plus of funding at the state minimum, plus 2% at best, that we wouldn't run into the situation we're in today. We, as a community, along with administration, have been advocating for an increase in funding for years and years that have not been met. Year after year, special education is not fully funded. How is this when we have Medicaid reimbursement that should be going back to the special education budget? Instead, we put it towards our shortfall in busing. Last year, special education didn't get the funding it needed, which directly resulted in the Department of Elementary and Secondary Education finding us in violation for a substantially separate classroom at Samoset of being overcrowded. We're setting ourselves up for failure again this year. without meeting needs, not following IEPs, not following state law, we're going to see a direct increase in outplacements resulting in millions to send children out of the district to meet their needs. If properly funded, this would not happen. We risk regression of children's skills. We are not thinking of the child. A child is not just a number. So
about
please make a
15
yes
seconds.
vote to make the forecast for 17 and 18 school year bright and sunny.
Thank you very much. Thank you very, very much. Next is Wendy Anderson. Oh, actually, I apologize. The clock up there is broke. I'm required by law to start our meeting at 7:30, so I just got to start the meeting, take care of a little business, and then I'll ask for recess. We'll go back into the public forum. The regular meeting of the Leominster City Council will now come to order for July 24th, 2017. We all please stand and join me for a salute to the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I'm now going to take a roll call of the honorable members of the City Council, beginning with Councilor Frida.
Present.
Councilor Dombrowski.
Present.
Councilor Shalfo-Zephyr.
Present.
Councilor Feckley.
Present.
Councilor Bedanza.
Present.
Councilor Lanciani.
Present.
Councilor Cormier.
Present.
Councilor Marchian.
Present.
And I am present. All 9 members are present this evening. Does the Chairwoman of Records, the Vice President, have any records to approve this evening?
I do have 2 records, records of the meeting of June 26th and of July 10th. I just received them this evening, Mr. President. They're very lengthy, and I would like additional time to review them.
Sure, no problem.
Motion for recess.
Okay, so I have a motion for recess and a second by Councilor Shalfo-Zephyr. All those in favor of recess? Okay, those opposed? Okay, the council now does stand in recess, and I will continue with the public forum. Wendy Anderson.
Wendy Anderson, 19 Crossman Avenue in Leominster. James Baldwin said, "Not everything that is faced can be changed, but nothing can be changed until it is faced." Well, we have some stuff to face and change. Good evening. I am before you once again to talk about funding for our schools. I understand your ability to remedy this situation is limited. You can only act on the amount of money placed before you. Allow me to share with you why you do approve the funds you're planning to vote on tonight, but also why you need to encourage the mayor to provide more and then approve those funds as well. Every child who enters a Leominster public school building, every one of them, without regard to their ability, race, religion, gender identity, sexual orientation, socioeconomic background, nationality, or any other category we choose to assign them, has placed a trust in us, as well as their families have placed a trust in us, that we will educate these children and do it well. The children we identify as gifted and enter our LEAP program, which we have heard so much about recently. They deserve their program because it is how we provide them with the best education possible. But our other students, the ones who either choose not to enter LEAP, who need more help, who are smart and talented but not gifted academically, who require small settings with extra supports to make it through the day, those who would be called average students, and every type in between all these labels, they deserve to have their needs met too and access a high-quality public education. And what about our ELL students and their families, many of whom are new here and aren't able to stand before you and make their case to ask for help? Are they being cared for properly, and who is looking out for them? Our special education students are among the most vulnerable of our population, and who is looking out for them? What is the ratio to the student teachers in their classroom? Are the sub-separate classes properly staffed? We have a shameful history in this district of not adequately providing for our special education students. The students at LHS deserve to have science classes with labs, to sit in classrooms that aren't overcrowded, to not be shoved into their auditorium and try to learn about literature while a few rows over, their peers are trying to learn history. But all of the students in all of our 12 buildings and programs deserve to be in a setting that provides them the chance to have their potential seen, nurtured, and reached. The students at LHS deserve to keep their arts programs, including the often life-saving theater program we've heard so much about. But the middle school kids deserve the same opportunity. We need to be talking about middle school band and chorus and theater. The need for these programs is great too, and these students deserve it as well. It is as much a lifeline for them as it was for the LHS students. And arts in the elementary school, we need to be talking about that. It becomes a part of their foundation, and it improves their test scores and academic performance. It provides a safe place for them to try out new skills like working as part of a team and looking at the world around them in ways their textbooks may not show them, all of which make them stronger students in all contact areas. And while it isn't part of what you're voting on tonight, I'm sure, oh, well, actually it is, I'm sorry, I wrote this before I found out you were voting on the 895. You need to know that every day children walk into our schools unfed, unwashed, mistreated, hurting, tired, angry, scared, and our teachers and other building staff see and try to help wherever they can. And even with their reduced numbers, they will continue to go above and beyond. But what will be missed because they have more faces and stories to look after, and who will suffer? I would like to point out a few things about this, and
Okay,
while
about
these...
15 more seconds.
Okay. So while the numbers, that our classroom numbers are more than just numbers on paper, and we need to be hearing from our principals and our teachers about what they're facing, and you need to hear from them, but they've been silenced and are not able to come and speak to you. They are the people who can best tell you the story that we need to hear and are not able to come and do that. They are with our kids 180 days a year for many hours a day. So I wanted to tell you that we are looking at a sinking ship, and we have only given some of our children life vests. And if this was a literal sinking ship and not a metaphorical one, would you give each child a life vest or watch them drown? We are failing our children, and we should be ashamed of ourselves.
Thank you very much. Joshua Anderson?
I have a last minute what I need to say. Okay. Joshua Anderson, 19 Osman Avenue. I've been here quite a lot, and I'm starting to tire of it, but hi. I want to talk some more about middle school band and how much it means to me and others. I briefly, yes, I said that briefly, mentioned last time I was owned to Samoset, while most of my friends are sadly owned to Starview. This means I'll be on my own. The only way I'm hoping with this is band. I play an instrument, and I've been told I'm not half bad. But when I hear that band and chorus are potentially being cut, I'm beyond mad and worse than scared. The reason I've been told is because if we keep them, the other specials classes will have up to 45 kids due to teachers being cut. Well, yes, that is a problem. If the mayor had just allowed you to properly fund the schools, we wouldn't have to cut these teachers, and my only open mechanism for leaving behind literally everyone I know wouldn't be on the chopping block. There is a whole generation now looking at you and the mayor. Please make the right choice. I leave now with a quote from William, I am never going to be able to pronounce that last name. Never be afraid to raise your voice for honesty, truth, and passion against injustice, line and read. Yep, that's it.
Thank you very much. Okay, next is Carrie Noseworthy.
Good evening. My name is Carrie Noseworthy. I reside at 95 Smith Street. Here to just go over a few things that everybody else has been talking about. Everything that Carrie had spoken about, I understand the importance of bond ratings, but I feel that the quality of education in our city is just as important as bond ratings as far as our economic viability, sustainability, and growth. 2% over net school spending will never be enough to educate all of our children equitably. I'm here tonight in support of any line items of funding that the mayor puts in front of you, be it emergency or in your agenda. I'm the mother of 2 children who access special education and they access the LEAP program. And I'm really here to speak for all children, but I would like to say, as far as LEAP goes, my youngest especially, when he was right before kindergarten, he had so many behaviors with his autism that he had a hospitalization at Hampstead Hospital and almost didn't attend kindergarten. And today, this past year, he brought home all A's on his report card. He's in band. He does chorus. He's doing well. Through all of our help and through the education that he has received, it has got him there. LEAP isn't an extra for him. And it is wonderful to hear that certain teachers go above and beyond, but that's not what my son needed to succeed. He needed LEAP programming. I am very nervous that when my kids go forward, all of the gains that they've made, I'm very nervous that they're going to regress, because this room never looked like this before. And us special education parents, we've been here every year before everybody else came in. We've seen what was coming, and we've tried to prevent it, and I'm so glad that now everybody's here backing us up. I just want to say that all children deserve an equitable education. We need more funding. It really is that simple, so that all of the children at all of the schools can be educated. Although I'm very excited if this actually does go through, because I don't know what to believe anymore. I also believe, as a taxpayer and a mother and an advocate, that it is very unfair that the other schools go unchecked. And as it's already been stated, special education, I'm nervous about all the lawsuits that are coming. I know DESE, I know everything relating to that, because I've had to fight for my own children for 11 and 13 years. So although I am thrilled about LEAP and class size getting smaller, I'm here to advocate for every child in the Leominster school system, and we have got to prioritize the schools so we can start funding above 2% net school spending, or we'll be here next year and the year after that, and then we'll be in receivership. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you. Okay, next is Melissa Bible.
Hello, Melissa Bible, 178 5th Street, Leominster. I'm here tonight to request the City Council approve the monies that have been put before you for the school district. The city is currently being penny-wise and pound foolish. It's great that we're going to provide services for Skyview and the high school that were in immediate risk of health and safety. However, still at risk are Bennett, Pre-Street, the Samoset Preschool, Francis Drake, Northwest, Johnny Appleseed, Fallbrook. What is the point of returning AEP programs, band, chorus, art, and theater to the middle school and the high school if there's no structure and framework for them in place through the elementary schools? This money also does not resolve the transportation crisis. Communication and transparency remain nearly non-existent. Will there be transportation for K through 6, K through 8, comparable neighborhood bus stops? Will kids that live within 1.5 miles get transported? Will kids that live under 2 miles get transported? Will all kids pay for transportation? Will the high school and middle school provide transportation and pay? There's been no communication to parents, and when we call and ask, there's radio silence from the administration. Rumor is that 46 kids from Skyview have left either through school choice or private school options, a potential $500,000 loss. Why would parents and teachers choose to come to this district in the current state that it's in? School starts in 38 days. I encourage all of you to do a drive-by of the current schools and see the outside condition. I also have photos of them available if you'd like them to see, and school's only been out a month. Teachers don't know what classrooms are going to be in, what schools they're going to be in, whether they're going to have jobs. Parents don't know what schools, transportation, or assistance they're going to have. Please approve the request for monies. Then please use whatever oversight you have to investigate how and why this happened and what we can do to fix it. All of our children in all of our schools deserve a safe and appropriate education in a safe and competent classroom. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next is Natalie, I can't read the last name, Statson, thank you.
Hello, my name is Natalie Stassen. I live at 893 Main Street in Leominster. And as a mother of 4 and an educator and having kids that are on the spectrum and in LEAP, I am a little overwhelmed. So I'm going to read to you instead from my husband's letter, where he can actually talk numbers, which I can't do without reading something. Okay, so he is currently teaching math at Fitchburg State, and that is why he is not here. But he has been at the last 3 meetings. He's listened to the city councilors and the folks in the audience wondering what happened and where did the money go? As if the problem were some sort of incompetence or fraud at the school department. You know well that the cost of doing business increases each year due to inflation. You know that you have to increase the budget by the same percent as inflation to keep the budget the same. If you give a lower percent, the budget effectively decreases. What would you say was the the annual budget inflation rate for the fiscal year 2012 to the fiscal year 2017. The school department budget went up 2.1% a year for that time period. While the city side of the budget, the general budget, government, public safety, public works, human services, culture and rec, and miscellaneous went up 4.8% per year. Unless you believe that the inflation rate for the school department was somehow different than it was for the rest of the city, these should have been the same. If you think the 2.1% was the right amount, we've been overfunding everything else. If you think that 4.8% was right, then the school budget has been declining year after year. The total city budget has increased about 3.1% per year for those same 5 years, and 3.5% for fiscal year 18. Had the school budget increased at the same rate, a modest 3.1% to 3.5% per year since fiscal year 2012, there would be no crisis today. The fact that the schools got 2.1% and the rest of the city got 4.8% represents a gradual shift in priorities away from the schools and toward the rest of the city. It doesn't matter whether or not that was anyone's intent. That was what happened. The diagnosis does not require finger pointing or blame. It is a math problem.
Okay,
The
about
cost
15
of doing
seconds, if you could
business
start to
goes
wrap it
up at least 3% a year. So I'm going to skip a lot of these numbers to tell you to keep the school staff the same as last year would be $49,475,000. Keeping the same level of service would be another $22,647,000. The cost of level spending for the whole school department, therefore, would be $72,122,000. This is due to a line item budget that was provided to this committee and to the school committee. The school committee knew that it wouldn't be approved, so they pared down that budget to $70,896,875. You've approved $66,721,910, and adding that $1.3 million and an additional $895,000 would bring that up to $68.9 million. Still almost $2 million less than the school department's original request, and another 2%, another $2 million less than what they actually need to just do level funding. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay, next is Nancy Martin.
My name is Nancy Martin. I live 62 Nickel Street, Leominster. While I think it's wonderful that the school committee came up with more, the mayor came up with more money, I still don't think it's enough. We still have children in the elementary schools. Their brains are still growing as our seniors and our high school kids are still growing. Our younger children really need to have the teachers in the school and to learn. Our schools are a mess. And like Melissa said, if you've gone to the schools, they're disgusting outside. I just can't believe how bad they are. My family, my husband was a custodian and lost his job. Yes, that put us in a financial bind, but I just feel sad for the teachers and the students that are going to go back to the schools being in the mess that they're in. And I also feel that while you guys all voted to have a DOR review, we also need to have a DOE review and find out where this money has gone with the school budget. Right now, our superintendent really needs to go. He's self-serving, and he's more worried about his doctorate in the LCE program. That's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay. Next is Tom Kanakia.
Good evening. Yes, it is true that we have the second highest bond rating in Worcester County, but let's put this into perspective. There are 58 cities and towns in Worcester County. Only 38 of them use Moody's. The others use the agency Standard & Poor's, or are so small that they don't even report their bond rating. Leominster has had its AA2 bond rating since 2010, so this is nothing new. Out of the 38 cities, 8 of them have the exact same bond rating of Leominster. So yes, we do have the second highest bond rating in Worcester County, but so do 7 other cities. Those cities are Auburn, Bolton, Grafton, Milford, Shrewsbury, Sterling, and Westboro. With the exception of Bolton and Sterling, Regional school districts, the 5 other cities exceed their net school spending requirements by an average of 24.9%, just slightly higher than the state average. City Hall needs to put its bond rating into perspective and stop exaggerating and overselling the point. Milford has an average 13.8% above net school spending. Shrewsbury has an average of 18.8 above NSS. Leominster, for 3 years, fiscal year 14, 15, and 16, has averaged 0.4% above net school spending. I cannot imagine what good will come from sacrificing the education of our children in order to maintain a bond rating that 21% of other communities in Worcester County also have. There has been much conversation recently on radio and television about the millions of dollars that the city is saving by having a AA2 bond rating. Let's use 3 interest rates that reflect the current interest rate environment and assign each to a bond rating and compare the actual savings for Skyview School. The city portion to build Skyview was $8 million over 10 years. $8 million at 3% with a AA2 bond rating for 10 years, $77,249 a month. Total payback, $9,269,831. $8 million at 3.25%, so 1 bond rating lower at an AA3 bond rating, 1 rating step lower, for 10 years, $78,175 a month. Total amount payback, $9,381,027. So having a better bond rating and paying a 0.25% lower interest rate means we have saved $111,196 over the 10-year life of the bond. So by having a better bond rating and a 1.25% better interest rate, we saved roughly $11,000 a year for 10 years. This is hardly the millions in savings the mayor talks about, and the statement of saving millions because of our bond rating should not even be part of the discussion. Unfortunately, the budget disaster of 2017 has divided the city unlike anything I have seen in my 46 years of living here. It reads like a movie script that long-standing residents such as myself have seen numerous times. Chaos ensues. Pit neighbor against neighbor. Solidify your voting base. Rearrange priorities and provide miracle money at the end. It does not have to be this way, Mr. Mayor. Take advantage of the DOR review and let's change the way the city does its budgeting and finances before the movie script is given the title of the budget crisis of 2018. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Okay, that's all that has signed up as of now. So I will ask if there's anybody else in the audience like to speak at the public forum. If so, please step to the microphone, state your name and address for the record.
My name is Catherine Gabriel, 100 Water Street, Leominster, Mass. Our brilliant former President Barack Obama once said, "Change will not come if we wait for some other person or some other time. We are the ones we've been waiting for. We are the change that we seek." It is time for us to take action for advocacy and for growth of our schools, not for making cutbacks because our city is afraid to spend the money. Your committee did vote for a DOR review, and I ask that you all continue to press for the mayor to approve that review. Even if it tells us nothing, it tells us that we tried, and it tells us that we took a look at what we can do to make change. There is a way to fund more than 2% of net school spending. There's a way to meet the state. We are not a below average city. There is a meeting of the Joint Committee on Education, a public hearing, which is being held tomorrow morning at the State House at 10 a.m. I plan to attend. I plan to bring my testimony as I'm testifying here because our Chapter 70 foundation budget is out of date and it can't continue. Part of the city's problem has been that there has been not enough money coming from the state. So all of us need to do what we can to advocate to the state to find the money in the city and to support our schools. Everyone is putting forward numbers. 24 Beacon Street is the number, the address downtown in Boston. The phone number for the Senate, 617-722-1673. Those numbers are important to all of us. We all need to communicate what's happening in Leominster. We need to communicate how to support our schools. I ask that every member of this committee and that the mayor publicly support the Fair Share Amendment so that money that's being held up by millionaires in our state can go towards those who are at risk in our schools. I'm a mother of an 8-year-old daughter. She is supposed to enter the LEAP program starting in the fall in the elementary school. How frightening is it to think that she might only make it to 5th grade in the LEAP program and then it's gone by the time she gets up to middle school? If we don't solve our financial problems now, we're going to see them tomorrow and we're going to see them next year. The funding from the budget needs to be the funding that goes towards the schools. This approach of pulling up net school spending budget for your council to begrudgingly approve, which I know most of you didn't want to do that and you were forced, and I feel bad that that was the way your hands were tied. But then finding the money later, the 1.3 million, and earmark it towards a specific thing, find 895,000 later, and then earmark it towards a specific thing is not how a budget needs to run. And we all need to take action to find the money, to budget it appropriately, and to take care of our kids. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Would anybody else like to speak at the public forum?
Zachary Zupko, 20 Buttermilk Road. Right now, I've been going through some personal family matter at the moment, and coming out here today was a major step for me. So, a couple months ago, my mom sent out a letter to Johnny Appleseed, Skyview, and the Leominster High School, basically in the letter saying of how excellent they were in serving the education for me. And how they did for me was just how, as a young kid growing up on the spectrum, was tough for me. And with that education, it taught me some important stuff for myself and all that. And even coming up here can be a little bit difficult as it is, and if I didn't receive that education for me, I wouldn't be up here right now. So, if these cuts go through each school in the Leominster district, then I can only think of the worst things that could possibly happen. More importantly, the removal of the children for their future and their education here, and it'll be tough. Seeing 30 to 40 students in a classroom, I can't even picture it. Really, it's tough, even for, kids like me. I can't imagine that, so if possible, to find a solution for this is important right now, because as these cuts go through, then I can only just assume the worst for them. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Would anybody else like to speak to the public forum?
Good evening. My name's Larry Zoar. I'm 8 Brentwood Drive in Leominster. And I'm the one who tells Josh he's really, really good, because I've known him since he started holding the thing. And no self-promotion or anything, but next week, August 4th at 11 o'clock, and I believe it's going to be at Leominster High School Auditorium, Bob Landry is directing the Summer Jazz Camp kids, and we would cordially invite you to attend and support my friend Josh and about 30 other students from the Leominster schools. Does that count on my 2 minutes?
Oh,
Sorry.
No, you're fine.
So anyway, it is with a heavy heart that I'm here speaking to you again tonight, this evening. There's a lot of emotion and many hurt feelings on both sides. Our children, however, deserve the best education possible. I find it disturbing why the children of our city are being held responsible for alleged fiscal mismanagement, fiscally conservative business practices, and bond rating ramifications. We shouldn't empty the savings account, but as a city, it is demanded that we give our children a chance at succeeding. If the school year started tomorrow, our children and our teachers have zero chance of success. Just as there is huge ramifications at moving money out of stabilization, free cash, rainy day, or whatever term you choose to use, there are huge ramifications at leaving our children and our schools to twist in the wind with zero chance of success. Currently, at one of the elementary schools, and I believe this is my school, Francis Drake, there are probably about 100 to 125 kindergarten students with only 3 teachers. Do the math. These kindergarten teachers that work at my school are some of the hardest working professionals out there. They have a very long and exhausting day. How is a teacher and an aide supposed to provide small group instruction that is needed? I do not even think they could fit that amount of students in their classrooms currently. 20 to 25 last year was very difficult for them. This does not include any special education, ELL, Title I, or any other service that a child may need that is in kindergarten. We have heard on more than one occasion about 99 students leaving the district this year. If this school district continues on the current path that the decision makers have put us on, the number will be much, much larger next year. 199, 299, 399, 499, or possibly more. Could we live with that? And where will that leave us next year when the budget comes around again? Test scores are going to go down. We are currently a level 3 district. Do we want to be a level 4 or possibly even worse, a level 5? We are in danger of making this a reality if the course of our district is not altered and altered very, very quickly. Little to no information seems to be coming out, and that seems to be the status quo. No plan seems to have been developed. I'm hoping that someone will step up and start taking a more proactive approach, releasing information, telling people what's going on, rather than a reactive approach. How many great teachers has our district already lost due to the lack of information or quite possibly the feeling of unappreciation? As far as the music program goes, this crisis has already damaged the program. Last week, one of the few custodians left in the district told me that he's not going to be able to move any equipment for my program or my concerts here at City Hall. We've been coming here for 10 years. And that's the first thing I have to tell my chorus and band students, that they feel special. This is like the White House to them when we come here to perform in December, March, and June. And now I'm going to be telling their families and the students, well, sorry, we can't go there. We're going to be at Francis Drake in a little cramped cafeteria. It's a cafetorium, actually. And
seconds.
Thank you. And I'm going to be telling that instead of saying we're going to City Hall, and that's the White House to these kids. They're not going to have that special feeling. Also in danger are many of the music department's all-city functions. Custodians do so much more for our schools than anyone could possibly realize. Currently, there are 2 positions in the elementary school that are considered open positions. If they remain unfilled, this will have huge ramifications on the program. The middle school numbers will go down, and that will affect the high school program. If there's no band, of course, at the middle school level, and it's forced after school, those numbers will decrease rapidly. The high school marching band, which those students are everywhere, would be hard-pressed to continue to provide the service it does for the city. When I first started in 2000, there were only 10 kids in the marching band. There wasn't a coerce program at the time. Do we want to go back to that time? I certainly do not. Mr. Russ Davis summed it up best 2 weeks ago. Do we want all of his work that him and Mr. Kruger provide to have gone for naught? Please, please, please continue to support any funds that the school department can get, and I know you will do what is right for our schools. Thank you for your time and our service to the city. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Would anybody else like to speak at the public forum? Once again, would anybody else like to speak at the public forum?
Hi, I'm Holly Koski. I just got
Could you state your address, please, too?
I live in Ringe, New Hampshire now. I used to live in Leominster for like 40-something years, but my husband was a custodian. I recently just got this today from the Finance Committee, the materials for tonight's meeting, and so I just went over these numbers. I see a figure for contractual services for $1,098,000, and the outsourcing of the custodians is $918,000 and $10,575 for each full-time employee. That brings it up to $1,203,525, with a difference of $105,525. One of the multiple different things that the custodians had submitted, one of them was not accepted because the additional savings was supposed to be in unemployment benefits. That was $212,000. So let's forget about that one. I'm looking at another one here where the custodians said they would give up $158,542 in benefits. It's less. So if that figure is accurate, as I said before, I think the only way you guys were able to do this and the reason why you were doing this was to save money. And if it's not saving money, why are you doing it? Thank you.
Thank you very much. Would anybody else like to speak at the public forum? Once again, would anybody else like to speak at the public forum?
Good evening. My name is Ronnie Hool. I live on 36th Street, and as you know, I'm on the Leominster School Committee. I avoided talking to the city council meetings these past 2 weeks because I felt I had said enough at my desk at the school committee meetings. But last night I got an email, and part of the email suggested or said that they didn't want the principals and others who were running the schools to speak in the public. I'm against that. I reacted badly last night. I'm a child of the 60s and 70s. I spent 2 years in the military. I was stationed at Fort Bragg. And I was told I had to keep quiet because I was talking about things that I didn't believe should be happening. I was threatened. But I didn't listen. I didn't listen to my superiors before, and I'm not about to start now. I'm a bad, bad student, and I don't listen. And I'm here, I could go on and on repeating everything that everybody has said, and I agree with them. We need a DOR review. We need to have all kinds of reviews. We need to follow the story of Cuba Gooding. And if you don't want Cuba Gooding, you go deep throat. Follow the money. I'm of the firm mind that when you follow the money, you're going to find some real epiphanies. It's your responsibility. You can put an emergency preamble and get the monies for the schools. Because right now, we're doing the dance of death of education in Leominster. It's as simple as that. We talk about nurses getting laid off. We talk about teachers getting laid off. We don't talk about the students. The students are being laid off. That's what they're doing. And we're preaching mediocrity. For those who, whatever their thinking is, they're not interested in high-performing students or low-performing students. All they preach is mediocrity. And that's what we're going to get in Leominster, mediocrity. As a nurse, I find this a public health crisis. And I'm asking you guys, I'm not telling you, I'm asking you, I'm begging, I don't know what to tell you. How to make the words stick, that you've got to do something. I have to convey a sense of urgency. I mean it. I didn't like coming to talk to you guys tonight because I thought I've said enough. I wanted the teachers and I wanted the parents to talk. I wanted the parents to be heard. And I don't think they've been heard loud enough. And I wanted the teachers to be heard too. And I want you guys to listen to them. I want you to comb everything, tweak everything. I'm begging you. As a school committee person, I'm embarrassed because our strength, our power is not there. We don't control the monies. Yes, we can vet what is supposed to be part of the budget, but even after we vote on it, it gets cut.
Okay.
That's all I have to say.
Thank you very much. Okay, would anybody else like to speak to public forum? Once again, would anybody else like to speak to public forum? And for the third, okay.
You just inspired me to get up, Ron. My name is Deborah Pothier. I live at 1059 Pleasant Street. Very concerned, been talking at the school committee meetings as well. This is really concerning. I have 4 girls in this school system. I'm embarrassed to say that we're having such issues. I work in corporate. This would never happen. If you have a $4 million deficit, someone has to be responsible and we have to fix the problem. By August 1st, if we don't have something in place of what we're going to do with these kids, I'm pulling all my kids out and I'm going to look to live somewhere else. Because this doesn't even sound like it's okay, responsible. My kids aren't safe. They don't have deans. We have janitors. You drive by the schools. Has anybody drove by the schools yet? So I think we need to really think about what we want to be known as for Leominster, because this reputation is not good for our taxes. No one will want to come live here or buy here. That's all I have to say.
Thank you very much. Would anybody else like to speak to the public forum?
Jasmine Tatel, 34 2nd Street. Thank you for your time this evening.
I could reiterate what everybody else has said, but I'm not going to. You've heard it. You know what's there. I just want to know when we're going to find out when our tutors are going to be there, the people that support our children the most, when we're going to know if our teachers are there, who's going where, who's doing what. I appreciate everything that has been done to put monies back into the system. But the things are being fixed at Skyview. How come not at Francis Drake? I have one in each school. Why do I have to worry about one and not the other? This is not fair. This is not equal. And I know that your guys' hands are tied, but if anything comes down, if there's any way us parents can help to make suggestions, to find new ways to do things, to work outside the box, please let us know. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Would anybody else like to speak at the public forum? Once again, would anybody else like to speak at the public forum? For the third and final time, would anybody else like to speak at the public forum? Seeing none, I declare the public forum closed, and the council meeting is now back in session. And we will move right into communications, beginning with C-4.
C4, relative to the appropriation of $2,000 to the Police Department overtime account, same to be transferred from the Disability Commission Fines Reserved for Appropriation account.
Okay, and C-4 will be referred to the Chairman of Finance.
Thank you, Mr. President. First time on the agenda. Regular course, please.
Okay, C-4 has been given regular course, and at this time, we have a suspension of the rules and an emergency preamble. The city clerk will read.
Dear members of the City Council, please accept the following communication on suspension of the rules. I hereby respectfully request that the following order be considered to have an emergency preamble as required under the provisions of Section 3-9B of the City of Leominster Charter. I respectfully request that an appropriation of $895,000 be made to the school department expense account, the same amount to be transferred from the stabilization fund.
Okay, so at this time, I will ask for a vote. Do we have any discussion first on suspending the rules? All those in favor of suspending the rules, please signify in the usual manner. Those opposed, by a vote of 9-0, the rules have been suspended. Can I also get a vote to accept this as an emergency preamble?
I'll make a motion.
Okay.
I'll second it.
Okay. All right. All those in favor of accepting this as an emergency, is there any discussion on the emergency aspect of this first? If not, all those in favor of accepting this as an emergency preamble, please signify in the usual manner. Those opposed, by a vote of 9-0, this has also been accepted as an emergency preamble, and I will refer it to the Chairman of Finance.
Mr. President, if I may
Sure.
interrupt for 1 second.
Yeah.
I just want to recuse myself to, again, confirm my wife has been a teacher in the public school system for 21 years. My daughter's been at the high school for 9, so I cannot vote on anything specifically targeted towards salary and wages, but I can vote for any other item.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right. Okay. Councilor Bedanza, are you ready to report?
Thank you, Mr. President. I have a letter accompanying the request dated July 21, 2017 from the mayor. I'll read it into the record. Members of the City Council, as a result of a cooperative effort by the city and school finance teams and I, the Leominster School Department will close fiscal year 17 without a deficit, helping to resolve many challenges related to the fiscal year 18 budget. The fiscal year closed just 2 weeks ago. We had to do two things. One, identify the actual deficit the school department was carrying, and two, identify any existing balances that could be applied against the final deficit number. Through that process, we have reduced the deficit from the previously estimated $1.7 million to $895,000. At this time, the city has decided that we are going to delay some of our much-needed capital improvement work, for example, the repair of the Barrett Park Dam and the Leominster City Hall roof in order to help the schools. These one-time funds will be used to pay the remainder of the fiscal year 17 school deficit and free up funds to return 2 instructional teams at the middle school level to sustain the LEAP/accelerated learning programs, restore teaching positions in math and science at the high school and vocational/technical school that will stabilize the classroom schedule and eliminate the large lecture-type classes in the auditorium, sustained advanced placement courses and retained classes in theater, music, and the arts. This brings the total commitment from the city side to $4.7 million over fiscal year 17 funding. The original increase for the fiscal year 17 budget submitted in June was $1.2 million. A total of $1.353 million was appropriated to the schools from free cash in May this year, and a total of $1.3 million from the stabilization account has been placed on the council agenda on July 14. Finally, an additional $895,000 previously slated for capital improvement projects is being sent to the City Council for approval with this letter. I am requesting that the City Council suspend its rules to permit the final appropriation to be acted on immediately with an emergency preamble. This will enable the school department to finalize its rehiring and budget priorities in the most expedient way possible. The above package should allow many of the current school staffing and program issues to be resolved. And that's signed sincerely, Dean J. Mazzarella, Mayor. So it would be my position as the chairman of the Finance Committee to grant this communication, and I'll check with members of my committee.
Oh, I absolutely support it.
And Councilor Marchian?
I concur.
Okay, so it looks like you have a unanimous recommendation by the Finance Committee to grant. Does this have doesn't have a item number, does it?
C5.
C5. To grant C-5. Is there any other discussion? Councilor Schaffler-Zephyr.
Yep, thank you very much. I just wanted to talk briefly, I won't, beat this dead horse, but in the mayor's letter, he talks about a total commitment from the city side of $4.7 million over FY17 funding, and 1.2, I think he said 1.2, total of 1.3, $1.2 million was added to the budget in June. That was the amount required to get to net school spending. That's not a big deal, it was required. Then goes on to say a total of $1.353 million was appropriated to the schools from free cash in May and June of this year. That is true. $243,000 was for capital repairs to a variety of buildings. You can't have leaky roofs. $250,000 was partial reimbursement for a resource officer that was never provided, however charged for, and the remaining $180,000 plus or minus could be spent as the school department decided. Medicaid reimbursement of $860,914. That's Medicaid reimbursement. We've talked about this before. That is money that the school department spends. Its professionals provide services to Medicaid eligible recipients. The school department bills Medicaid. Medicaid reimburses the city. So that money is money that the school department spent providing services to kids that are covered by Medicaid. So all of this money, this is $861,000 that the mayor, gave back, or that went back to the school department out of free cash. That was money that they had actually spent. So it's not a real huge net gain for the school department. So when you talk about $4.7 million, I think it's really important just that people understand what that's comprised of. 1.2 was just to get the budget up to net school spending for the fiscal year. $861, was Medicaid reimbursement, money for capital expenses, capital repairs, and then the resource officer and something else. So anyways, that's how, and then the $895,000 actually that's on the agenda for tonight is part of that 4.7. So that's the detail on that. I just wanted to make sure that people understood that, because it's a big number. It sounds like a big number. A lot of it doesn't count toward net school spending either. Thanks.
Okay. Is there any other discussion on C-5? Councilor Bedanza.
Yeah, I just want to point out that I think the council's breakdown is accurate. But what it's claimed.
It is.
Excuse me. We're in session in a city council meeting. We don't. This isn't theater. We can't applause. We're trying to run a productive meeting here and a professional meeting. So I just asked that there's none of that during the meeting. Councilor Bedanza, please continue.
Yes, and but the claim is that, it's a simple claim. This is a claim of funding over the prior fiscal year. That's all it is. So it's not suggested to be anything other than that. I have the floor, right?
Yeah,
Yes,
you
you
do.
do.
That's why I
Yeah.
held my breath.
Yeah.
I'll wait.
So, in looking at the, I went through the numbers, and I looked at what the mayor's original budget was versus the school committee's recommended budget. and the delta at that point was $5.6 million. When you do all of the math and you figure out what additional funds have been made available, and you also take into account that when the school committee passed its budget on June 6th, there was a expected deficit, or there was an embedded deficit from fiscal year 17. We're still now off approximately $2 million.
That's right.
And it has to be taken into account. It should be said that, I've talked to the business agent that, of course, the 99 students that the district was reduced by, reduced our state aid by $1 million. The issue with respect to what the deficit was when the school committee passed its budget on June 6th is a little, it was hard for me to pin that down. I went through all the materials. It was at least $1 million, perhaps more, but that's where we stand. Obviously, this is much needed money, and I'm happy that we're able to act on this this evening and get it passed. We're in a better position than we were a few weeks ago, and this is it's been a work in progress. I know that there are other things that are going on. There is a issue with respect to whether we are accurately reporting the number of educationally challenged, economically challenged English learning students to the state for our proper reimbursement. I know there's some good work going on with respect to that could raise significant funds for fiscal 19. I think that's encouraging and important, and hopeful, of course, out of this crisis that some good things will develop for our fiscal future in the schools. So I'm happy to support this $895,000.
Okay. Is there any other discussion on C-5? Councilor Shalfo-Zephyr?
Yeah, just one comment. I just wanted to point out that the language, I was reading basically from the mayor's letter, and it said this brings the total commitment from the city side to $4.7 million over FY17 funding. I just wanted to make that clear. But you're absolutely right. I mean, this money is critical. We still do have almost $2 million. That is the difference between the school department approved budget and what the mayor submitted. So, this gets us almost, about halfway back, I guess. But there are still serious deficiencies, I think, that will be throughout the district. And this is not the last conversation, I'm sure, that we will have about the 2017 budget disaster. I expect that this will be an ongoing topic of conversation right now through the fall, until school gets started and until things get sorted out.
Okay. Is there any other discussion on C-5? Councilor Freedom.
First of all, I've been saying since the night we voted on the budget, we should be having some communication. The 30 years I have sat on this council, 24 years on the council, 6 on the school committee, I have never been asked to spend this kind of money that really is in our position to be approving, that we don't have people standing here that have the answers to some of these questions that aren't here. Where's the superintendent? He should be here tonight in case we had any questions. Where is the mayor if we had any questions? I understand we could have written and we could have asked the questions. I understand all that. But we're getting all this stuff that's just happening quickly. We don't understand where some of this money is going. I have a lot of questions about the money. Who's made the decisions on restoring some of these programs? What kind of effect is it going to have if we have one and not the other? I mean, I think there's a lot of questions that still need to be answered. Even the email that we got from the superintendent last Wednesday, I know it's regarding the 1.3 million, but it says the understanding of the 1.3 million earmark is as follows. How can the superintendent say it's an understanding of the 1.3 million earmark? There should be a definite answer to the question, not a my understanding is that's what we're going to do. Is that what we're going to do? $500,000 for athletics and extracurricular? What is included in extracurricular? What is that? Is it $499 for sports? No offense to sports before everybody starts calling me and saying I don't support sports. But we have music programs. We have arts. How much is that? Is it $250 and $250? Is it $500? Is it $499 and $1? Where is some of this going? $800,000 to restore teaching positions. If you divide $800,000 by the 65 coming back, simple math brings you to $12,000, $13,000, $14,000. Those aren't teaching positions. What are they? Where are some of these? I'm really uncomfortable sitting here tonight voting on this. I know we have to. We're backed into a corner. We're always backed into a corner, all the time. An emergency preamble, a situation. This is not something that just developed. This is something that's been happening, and we're stuck at the end of the road now. We're going to support this. Of course we're going to support it. We would never not support it. But to sit here and not knowing custodial services, I said it before, I went through this in the 80s. I went through this with custodians and privatizing. It doesn't work. Doesn't work financially, doesn't work with a service. People just don't care like custodians care that live here and participate. It's not our job to dictate. It's not the school committee's job to dictate. But at this juncture, isn't it a good idea to sit and have a conversation and see how people feel? How does the school committee feel? Where some of that money should be spent? That should be their prerogative. That should be their function now. I know they're policy making, but there are some real issues here. We're going to have to vote for it. I don't like it. I can tell you right now, I don't like it. We should not be in this position. I'm going to support it, certainly, but I think it's an insult to us, it's an insult to the public, it's an insult to a lot of people to be put on the spot almost August 1st and not knowing who's going to be where. If this comes back and people are put in positions and jobs don't work and the kids aren't being serviced the way they should, it's going to be that we should have asked more questions. Who are we going to ask? Where are we going to get the answers? We tried that. We can't get any. This is really, and I'm going to agree with a couple people tonight that said this is an embarrassment. It really is embarrassing to be put in this position. 30 years in elected office, and I've never been in a position as bad as this or seen government work as badly as this has. And I sat with no money in the 80s, and Councilor across from me will know there was no money. There was no money. No ed reform, but there was no money anywhere, and it wasn't as bad as this.
Okay. Is there any other discussion? Council Pedanza.
Yeah, I'm going to support this with no reservations very gladly. I mean, bottom line is, look, we don't manage the school department. You know, Chapter 71, Section 34 makes it very clear that we have no authority on how the school department spends the money once we appropriate it. So, you know, it's wonderful that, you know, we have some information, but look, we need to move forward. This is an emergency. We need to get this done. We need to get this money to the schools so they can plan on how this money is going to be used. We need to just move past this and get this taken care of this evening. And we have to know where we stand in this process. It's not our role to determine where this money's going. It just isn't. And it's our authority to support the actual communication, and that's it.
Okay. Is there any other discussion? Councilor Frida.
Yeah, just to rebut that, my comments are not based on any fact that we don't control the school department. I fully understand we don't control the school department. But guess what? We're being asked right now to fund all this. We shouldn't be asked to do that either. So, you know, with one piece, the second piece comes with it. I'm not even suggesting that this has got anything to do with us controlling the school department or where the money goes. But we are being asked to do this tonight, and it's not a normal situation.
Okay. All set. Is there any other discussion on C-5? Councilor Feckley.
I'm actually going to address this to the Finance Committee Chairman. Just to clarify some of the statements that were made here this evening. One statement was that we could ask for an emergency preamble to get more money. I just wanted that to be clarified publicly, that we cannot do that.
No, we don't.
Council Pedanza, yep, through the chair.
Yes.
We're not an appropriating authority. We cannot appropriate money. We can only cut money or not approve money that's been sent to us. We can only essentially, we have two choices: approve what's been sent to us as a spending measure or not.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay. All set. Okay, Councilor Dombrowski, did I see your hand as well?
Yeah, obviously going to support this. I mean, there's two concerns, you know, there's an immediate concern, and then there's the future. And I did some research over the weekend, and, my research was in accord with one of the speakers, Mr. Canaccia. And those numbers are astounding, absolutely astounding. And government is about priorities, and we need to get ours straight. Okay, so I will support this, and I think there's got to be a lot of pencils sharpened.
Okay, Councilor Shalfo-Zephyr?
Yep, thank you very much. Just for the record, the superintendent is at the Finance Subcommittee meeting. I knew that, and
that's right.
that's been confirmed. So I'm not sure. Maybe the mayor's there, too. I don't know if he is or not. I don't know that. People are shaking their head no. Okay, I don't know that. But one other thing I just wanted to say is the city, this is not a revenue problem. It's not a money problem. It's really, as the councilor to my left said, it's a priority problem. It's priorities. People out in the community, when they hear, the schools are looking for more money, they're looking, it's not, we're not talking about raising taxes. We're talking about looking at really how we can be efficient and how we can support priorities in the city that many people feel are near and dear to their hearts. And it isn't necessarily having the top bond rating locally, especially when you hear, the minuscule difference that changes in a bond rating really make. So I just wanted to, put that out there.
Okay.
Thank you.
Is there any other discussion on C-5? Councilor Frida?
Just again, I understand the superintendent is at a finance subcommittee meeting, but I think asking for over $2 million from us is pretty important. I think that could have been put off a little bit.
Okay.
I just think you should be here.
I don't disagree with you, and I think the mayor should be here as well. He's the one asking, he's the one that sent the appropriations down.
Okay. All right, is there any other discussion? Councilor Marsham?
Thank you, Mr. President. I've been pretty quiet during this whole process, trying to figure it out, and I think we've all come to the conclusion it just has to stop. The finger pointing has to stop. And, one of the things that would very easily be able to take place was we would point the fingers at the school committee, they will point them at us, we will point them at the mayor, back and forth. But at the end of the day, the kid that hit home with me tonight was Victoria from Skyview. How eloquent did she speak? Wasn't that amazing? And the other kids that were here tonight did a great job too. And not just the first time, but they've been back here, time after time to try to share their position on what's happening here in the city. Regarding the emergency preamble, it's a tough situation for us to be in. I don't care if we're here every 48 hours to make sure we get the funding there. We certainly will do what we can and have to be here to take care of that matter. But it's a crisis that has been going on now for some time. This isn't something that happened right now. This has been going on. The school committee became aware of it back in January of 2016. And they had frustrations going through that budget process at that point, weren't able to address the issues that had to be addressed collectively because there was no budget in 17, and now we're at this particular junction at this point right here. It's not their fault, it's just, I think it's an allocation problem. I taught in Shrewsbury for 21 years, and I know what it's like when you get 18%. And I just happen to be on, I still get the emails there from last year, and I think there were 27 positions they're looking for today. Just crazy, the growth and development. And they went through some financial crisis as well. But you have to work through it. You have to work through it. In the past, when I sat as council president, the school committee, the school chair, invited the school committee to participate with us twice in meetings down here, and they declined both times. We now need to break that barrier and start opening up and sharing with each other. There has to be an oversight committee. I like the DOR review. But we have to look at the big picture on how we're doing things here in the city. And, with our due respect, we're in good shape. We understand that as a city. But at the same time, we can't have this type of a crisis happen. It's not going to get better, even though we can somehow fix it right now. If we can even come to a common ground right now and more money comes down, we're going to be in the same boat next year. So we can anticipate that happening with the presidential administration leaning in the direction of federal cuts, Medicaid cuts, reimbursement, et cetera. So we need to fix this, but it's a process we go through. I was a little bit appalled tonight when I heard a school committee member tell us that he got a gag order along with school principals to be able to come down and speak. Because at the last meeting, we had a gentleman come down here from Skyview who was eloquent, he was matter of fact, and he really hit it on the head. And for us not to have that type of dialogue down here is just not proper. I understand there's a lot of tension right now, but we have to work this out. We have to get some kind of a joint effort between us and the school committee. One of the great pieces of the communication that the mayor sent us was that he had success with his finance team and the school department team in their discussion they had. And that's the first time I've heard those kinds of words in a long, long time. So I'm looking forward to hopefully resolving this. Unfortunately, as it's been stated, we can't send down emergency preambles for communications for money, but I'm sure that we would, continue to support them as they come forward. So, with that being said, I'm ready to move. Thank you.
Okay, is there any other discussion on C-5? Council Feckley.
So I'm ready to support this tonight also. I mean, I don't think that we have any other alternative. I mean, if we did have an alternative, we certainly would take advantage of it. I too was very impressed by the people that spoke tonight, especially our students. I know Zachary asked, he can't even imagine what a classroom of 40 students would look like. Well, we have a picture of it, and it's not a I substitute taught for quite a few years, and I've been at Skyview. This is Skyview, by the way. And 46th graders in a classroom, to even try to get them out of the classroom in an emergency situation would be a disaster. I mean, even just a regular bell ringing, I can see them all falling all over each other. I mean, that's just the reality of it. So this, to me, I know it's Shark Week. I mean, not to make light of the situation, but this is kind of like a Sharknado. It just came on, and it kept on going, and now we have to do something about it. Is it fair that some schools are getting money and others aren't at this juncture? No. But we're hoping that discussions will continue. More money might come out of the situation, but at this point, we cannot take the chance of not taking this money and not being able to get these schools to open up in some semblance of order. One of the parents said 38 days from now. Mm-hmm. So I am willing to move forward with it tonight.
Thank you. Is there any other? Councilor Lanciani.
Thank you. I'm sitting here trying to decide whether I should speak or not. This is my last year that I'm going to be supporting a school department budget, and I'm ashamed that this is the way it's going to be going out. Another thing that bothered me, when the school department was notified and the superintendent, the custodians got together and decided that they would help by coming up with some game plan. And I appreciate those that spoke this evening and last meeting about the custodians doing what they did. But not one single word from the superintendent thanking the custodians for what they did. And now it's coming to fruition. I'm not a big supporter of Mr. Jollicoeur. If he got fired this evening, I'd be happy. I'd smile, and I would, when I die, I'd have a smile on my face. The guy is not doing his job. For $100-something thousand a year. He's sticking it up our butts. But I truly feel that we're going in the right direction. The mayor has sent down this request. We heard the teachers, the parents, the students. I can't thank the students enough for taking the initiative to come here and to speak to this council. you all know that as a counselor, we can't tell anybody what to do with one single penny. It all has to come through the mayor's office. And, you know, it is embarrassing at times when you can't get what is needed and what is deserved. But I wholeheartedly support this evening. Don't stop coming in and speaking. Please, you make my night perfect. Thank you.
Okay. Is there any other discussion on C-5? Okay, seeing none. Once again, the Finance Committee has recommended granting C-5. So all those in favor of granting C-5, please signify in usual manner. Those opposed? By a vote of 9-0, C-5 has been granted. So does the chairman have an order?
Yes, Mr. President, ordered that the sum of $895,000 be appropriated to the school department expense account, same to be transferred from the stabilization fund. Move for the adoption of the order.
Okay, you've heard the request for the adoption of the order. All those in favor of adopting the order, please signify by saying yea.
Yea. Yea.
Those opposed? By a vote of 9-0, C-5 has been adopted. We will now move on to petitions. 4-18, Madam Clerk.
4-18, Comcast of Massachusetts III, Harvard Street. Starting at utility pole number 31-50, place one 3-inch PVC conduit 187 feet more or less to a proposed 24 by 36 vault. Continuing from vault 22 feet more or less onto private property to service 39 Harvard Street.
Okay, and 4-18 will be referred to the Chairwoman of Public Service.
We had the public hearing on this, right? No. Okay.
Oh,
Easy to confuse me tonight.
August 14th, 7:05.
See,
August 14th at 7:05.
okay.
okay, the recommendation, I'll go to my committee, Councilor Feckley and Councilor Cormier. Comcast of Massachusetts, 3rd Harvard Street,
This is-
starting utility pole number
Council
31-50.
Frida? This is just first time on the agenda tonight.
Right,
Right, she already read it.
okay.
So just regular question, we're gonna set
All
up
right, regular course, and set up a hearing for
August-
August 14th at 7:05.
Okay, perfect. Okay, so 4-18 has been given regular course, and we will take a vote to set up a hearing on August 14th, 2017 at 7:05 PM. All those in favor of setting up that hearing, please signify in usual manner. Those opposed, by a vote of 8-0, I will be abstaining from this because it is a competitor of my employer, which I'm required to abstain. So by a vote of 8-0, August 14th at 7:05 PM, hearing has been established. Moving on to matters before the City
Mr.
Council.
President, may we move Finance C1 to the top, please?
Absolutely. If there's no objections, we will move the item under Finance, C-1, to the top of the agenda.
And before we begin, I'd like to recuse myself. My wife and daughter are teachers in the school district, so I'd like to abstain from anything on this regarding wages and salary.
Okay,
Thank you.
sure. And C-1 will be referred to the Chairman of Finance. Are you ready to report?
Yes, Mr. President, C-1, relative to the appropriation of $1,300,000 to the school department expense account, same to be transferred from the stabilization fund. This was on our agenda for the first time last meeting. This, again, not unlike the emergency preamble communication that we just voted on, is to assist the schools with their current fiscal year funding, and it would be my position to grant C-1. I'll check with the members of my committee.
Absolutely.
Without reservation.
Okay. All right, so you've heard the unanimous recommendation of the Finance Committee to grant C-1. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor of granting C-1, please signify in usual manner. Those opposed, by a vote of 9-0, C-1 has been granted. Does the chairman have an order?
Yes, Mr. President, ordered that the sum of $1,300,000 be appropriated to the school department expense account, same to be transferred from the stabilization fund. Move for the adoption of the order.
Okay, you've heard the request for the adoption of the order. All those in favor of adopting the order, please signify by saying yea.
Yea.
Those opposed, by a vote of 9-0, C-1 has been adopted. Going back up to items under Ways and Means, C-3, Madam Chairwoman of Ways and Means, you ready to report?
I am, Mr. President. C-3, Dean J. Mazzarella, Mayor, approved the CDBG Budget Action Plan for year 43. This was presented to us at the last meeting under the suspension of rules and given regular course. This evening, we had Kristen Kelly, the director, down here to explain the breakdown of the allocation. The total allocation is $423,479. 15% allowed for public services is $63,521.85, and planning administration is $63,448.08. We did have some questions regarding some of the increases, and Ms. Kelly has supplied us with some additional information. Did every counselor get this?
I did.
Okay.
It was quick.
So there was a salary and benefits increase of $16,866. They also increased the expense line items for housing rehab from $2,000 to $4,360, economic development from $1,150 to $2,150 to account for increases in those items this year. This brought the increase in expenses to approximately $25,226. Subtracting the $4,931 increase in entitlement allotment, this leaves approximately $20,295 of the overall increase, which is covered under the 15% allowed for public services. So before I received this information, my plan was to ask for further time on this petition. However, at this point, I believe that since they are within the 15% allocation, that we should move forward and approve the CDBG Budget Action Plan. And I will go to my committee.
Council Marchand?
I concur.
Okay, Council Inciani?
I concur.
Okay, so you've heard the unanimous recommendation of the Ways and Means Committee to grant C-3. Is there any discussion? Council Marchand?
I brought up code enforcement tonight. I'm very, very serious about that. This isn't something that is rhetorical. You know, and I had just a sidebar conversation with the Ward 2 councilor regarding how important the code enforcement has been in what we know as the French Hill area alone, and what it's meant to them over decades. It's significant, and if the city was in a situation where we had no code enforcement, we would have a problem. No question about it. And, you know, this is the mitigation that takes place between the tenants and the landlords, and in some cases between the landlords and the tenants. It's a reverse role, but the Board of Health plays a key part when it comes down to this. When Chris Knuth would come down here year after year with his budget, I would raise the question that he was one officer shy, and he always, you know, took the high road and made ends meet with his officer. But in the meantime, you know, this is a significant player, you know, with health issues, supporting the State Sanitary Code, Chapter 2, and it's critical. So what I would like to do is I'd like to ask if maybe through the chair we can have the Ways and Means chairperson, you know, ask Kristen specifically what the plan is, because we are anticipating some major cuts in CDBG going into next year. Thank you.
Okay, all right. Councilor Bedanza,
I just want to real quick thank Kristen for getting this. I thought the Councilor at Large asked some good questions about the comparison between the 2 years, and very impressed with how quickly she got us that information.
Absolutely.
So that was great.
Okay, Councilor Shalfo-Zephyr?
Yeah, thank you very much. No, you know, this is very interesting, and I do really appreciate the fact that she turned it around so quickly, because this is exactly what I was looking for. You know, it's interesting, she says, I'm just going to read briefly from the letter. Regarding the year 43 budget for the CDBG program, please accept the following additional information as to differences in budget estimates between this year and the past year. The overall entitlement is increased by $4,900 this year. In contrast, salaries and insurance benefits have increased significantly more. Now, where have we heard that before? Salary increases and insurance benefits have increased significantly. Benefits increased 22%, almost $8,500. And this is a very small budget. You know, these are smaller numbers, but this is exactly and precisely one of the biggest problems that the school department was having, and that the superintendent did explain. So I thought this was very interesting, because this is exactly the narrative for the school department, just writ small. Thank you.
And is there any other discussion on C-3? Seeing none, all those in favor of granting C-3, please signify in usual manner. Those opposed, by a vote of 9-0, C-3 has been granted. Moving on to 1-18. Madam Chairwoman, are you ready to report?
1-18, Claire Frida, eliminate Rule 34 entitled Legal Opinions regarding the City Council rule that applies to council access to the city solicitor. It would be my my take on this that we should keep the rule in force and not grant this petition, and I will go to my committee.
Councilor Marchand?
If I may, with all due respect, I'd like to yield the floor to the petitioner for her rationale on that before I make a decision. Committee.
Sure. 25, I thought about this a lot. 24 years ago, when we sat here and Copeland and Page came in for the first time, we hired them or approved the appointment, confirmed the appointment, based on the ability for a city council to be able to call up with no fee, ask questions and get answers to some of the questions. It was a line of open communication that we had, and it's something that's worked for 24 years. When it got a little out of hand, the mayor sent a letter and pulled us back a little bit, but for the most part, we were able to get answers to our questions. You have a meeting on a Monday night, and Tuesday morning, somebody asks you a question, whether it's regarding planning or a zoning issue or whatever, and you gotta wait 2 weeks to have another meeting. I mean, there's an ability to call the city solicitor and ask a question, get an answer to that. It's pretty obvious that there's been some communication with the city solicitor through this whole question about the budget and the hearings. All you gotta do is look at the bill from the city solicitor and find out the conversations that we've had, that have been had. I think it got a little selective, and we don't have time to take votes all the time. So until there's a real reason that we see that there's an abuse, I think we should have the ability to pick up that phone and call the city solicitor that was hired to be able to answer questions for us.
Councilor Marchand?
I agree with the petitioner.
Okay. Councilor Lanciani?
I feel that we should leave it as it is.
Okay. All right, so the recommendation of Ways and Means at this point is to deny 1-18. Is there any discussion? Councilor Dombrowski?
I voted against this the first time it came around, and I'm going to vote that way again tonight. I don't know why we would pass anything that would limit our power. We got enough people, particularly in the corner office, limiting our power and telling us what we can and cannot do. So I'm going to support 118. I think that Rule 34 should be eliminated.
Okay. Is there any other discussion? Councilor Bedanza?
Yeah, speaking from experience, because I did the job for 3.5 years, the city solicitor does not act as of counsel to each and every individual city councilor. It's as simple as that. You know, if that was the case, we would have chaos. We don't, the city solicitor acts for the body or the subcommittee. I think the rule is perfectly fine. I don't see any situation where if there was some kind of crisis or chaos, we could go through the mayor's office. The city solicitor is really the mayor's attorney, by and large, and I think you have to have order. You can't just have, there's all kinds of potential abuses if the city solicitor is answering to particular city councilors on particular issues without that information being transparent and shared with the entire body. The transparency, for me, is a very important part of this.
Okay. Councilor Schaffel-Zephyr?
Thank you. I am actually going to support this and support the councilor at large. You know, transparency is non-existent in the city. That's just the way it is. You know, and I believe that people on the council that have gotten opinions and have talked to the city solicitor are pretty good about bringing that information to the council. And if they're not, then they should be. Really, we're all grown-ups. We're not going to take advantage of a situation. I mean, I can't imagine anybody calling the city solicitor unless they have a real problem, right? And I'm happy to share that information through the city clerk's office. I don't have a problem with that, so I'm going to support this.
Okay. Counselor Dombrowski?
Yeah, and I mean, I've been sitting here for almost 14 years, and, prior to Rule 34 being enacted, we didn't, I don't recall having issues. I mean, we get the bills from Copeland and Page, and if somebody's abusing it, it's going to come up, but, it never did, and I just don't want to limit my ability to get information if I need to do that. So I felt that way before, so I continue to feel that way.
Okay. Counselor Frida, did I also see your hand?
I agree. I don't know why any of us would want to limit our ability to get a legal opinion or just some guidance. And for 24 years, we haven't had chaos. There hasn't been chaos here without the rule. I mean, it's been fine. And I always thought, even though it's the mayor's appointment, that it was actually the city solicitor for the city. I didn't think it was the mayor's attorney. If that's the case, we have an attorney, so let's be able to call him. That's not how the process is to go. So I appreciate the support. I just don't see any need to have restrictions on us. If it was abused, then that'd be one thing, but it hasn't been.
Okay. Is there any other discussion? Councilor Bedanza.
Well, the point is that, there's a financial implication to this, so every time, if there isn't this rule, every time one of us calls, we're committing the city funds to whatever happens to be our particular individual question, as opposed to a question as a body. I think the situation functions best when we act as a body, not as individuals, and there is ample time to bring these matters before a committee or before us as a whole, before we need to involve the city's finances and the city's attorney.
Okay. Is there any other discussion? Councilor Frida.
Let's face it, a council president, maybe not this one, maybe next year, maybe the year after, maybe the year after, can be selective. You want to limit it to a committee, then whoever gets on a particular committee has the right to call the attorney and the rest of us don't. I mean, I got elected by the same majority of people in the city. And they deserve an answer to a question when I have one. This is a question of fairness. It's not acting as a body. We act as a body down here, that's right. But in order to come in here and be prepared, sometime we need to ask the question. And clearly, the city solicitor said 24 years ago, anybody can call him anytime and he'd be happy to answer the question. We have not been charged for those. So I don't see the issue. If it starts showing on the bills that it's being abused, then the council president can make a decision. The clerk is there, she sees the bill. So I really don't see why there's an argument to it.
Okay.
I just need to be clear about,
Councilor Bedanza.
just to be clear about the rule, it isn't the committee chair that has the right, it's the committee, it's a subcommittee after a vote. The rule reads subcommittee after a vote of the subcommittee, not the chair.
Okay. And Councilor Marchand.
I respect both sides of the position. I understand the opposing viewpoint. It could be chaos, but I don't believe it has been. A few years back, before we redid the zoning, from the legal affairs chair, we were constantly, I was dealing with the city solicitor almost on a daily basis. Sometimes we'd have 4 or 5 zoning or special permits before us. We don't have that any longer. What happens is we do have thoughtful, engaged subcommittees, so when something comes out of subcommittee, it's not a problem because it's coming out of committee. But I'll just give you an example. Lynn and I, the city clerk, was sitting down before the budget meeting that day, I believe. And what happened was, the question I raised was, can I extract the school budget out of the general budget? And I brought that to a vote that night, if you guys remember. If we could separate it, we didn't. But the fact of the matter was the city solicitor that represented us that night had no clue that was going to happen and had to prepare for it. He literally had to prepare for that, because what happened was he had a different interpretation going into that question. So it just so happened I was with the city clerk, I asked the question, the call was made to Copeland and Page through the clerk, and then at that point right there, the answer would, we put Copeland and Page in a position where they could come in on Monday night for the hearing and have it all set. Those are the kinds of communications. It's not, you know, the fly-by-day things that we can deal with, that we're going to disrespect the process and just, it becomes our own private attorney. But there are times, you know, there are times when the gentleman, for example, that you represented, Mr. President, in your neighborhood, that had a problem with an easement and a right-of-way. You know, to be able to sit down with him and make that call certainly would have answered some questions for you ahead of time. So, you know, that's a big picture type of a question. But in the meantime, it does go back to John Giorgio's comments to me when he first came in during this administration, that if we ever had a question, feel free to call him and it would be set like that. So I'm not looking for questions that would be essential questions that should be shared with the council. And if I do, there's a protocol to be able to make sure that in fact happens. Thank you.
Councilor Bedanza?
Let me be more pragmatic. Councilor A has a question and decides they're going to frame that question in a particular way to ask the city solicitor. If that question, instead of being framed by the individual councilor, was brought before a subcommittee or the committee of the whole body, it may be that ultimately, after some discussion, the question may be framed totally differently, which would result in a completely different opinion. It may be that the whole body or the subcommittee wanted another question answered that was closely related to the question that the individual councilor wanted answered. It may be that when the entire examination was done, the opinion would be of much more use to the whole body or to the subcommittee, because the city solicitor would have been asked what policy the city council as a whole or that subcommittee wanted answered. So what you're doing is you're essentially setting up the city solicitor to answer questions that are tailored to a particular councilor's needs, as opposed to the entire body's needs. We act as a body. It's not so simple to ask a simple question and get a simple answer. Sometimes questions need to be refined. Sometimes other questions need to be answered that are related closely to that question that give a much broader picture. Maybe the particular councilor has a certain bent. This is a political body. Let's be real about it. Okay, so things come before us and we have political persuasions. And maybe the entire body, when looked at, wants to add additional questions to get a fuller picture. That's what this is about, when you really strip away all of it. That's why I support Rule 34.
Okay. Councilor Dombrowski?
And sometimes it's not that nefarious.
Sometimes.
And that opportunity to frame questions, ask additional questions of the whole body is still there. Doesn't go away. The reality is, no offense to the president, but I don't follow Rule 34. I call the city solicitor whenever I want to, and I ask him questions, and he answers them. That's the reality. And we've never been billed for it, and I don't think there's been any nefarious setting. I think we should have the ability to continue to do, we should have the ability to do that again.
Okay. All right. Councilor Marshall?
My experience with Copeland and Page has always been, if I ask a question and they believe that this is an essential question that should go before the council, they do that. So they do not answer me directly. At that point right there, it would be incumbent upon me to go through the chair or go through the mayor's office, or if there's a committee that's set up or established to be able to deal with it, that type of a thing. But the fact of the matter is, they've given me guidance on what should be asked by an individual counselor with a concern, especially of a constituent, that's an isolated case, off the record, here's your answer, go back and guide them, or if it's something that belongs to the committee as a whole. So I've had a good relationship with Copeland and Page. I certainly haven't abused it, even as a legal affairs chairman for probably 6 years during all the zoning and special permits and everything. But in the meantime, I think that it's a little tight right now, and in some cases, we need to have a little bit of flexibility. Councilor Shalfo-Zephyr hit it right on the head. I'm trying to be transparent, and that's what we're trying to be, transparent. So, this is an issue that I think is, it's not an old blue law, that's for sure. It's something that does have validity, as Councilor Bonanza has pointed out. But I just think, I feel, I'm not an attorney, so once in a while I need to ask for a little bit of assistance. And coming from Copeland and Page, I trust that their guidance has been very effective. Thank
Okay.
you.
Councilor Shalfo Zephyr?
Yep, thank you very much. I actually have followed Rule 34, I think on a couple of occasions, and have presented my questions, through the city clerk's office, through the mayor, whoever, I can't remember what the route is. But you know what, if suddenly I need something and I need it quickly and I can't go that route, I'd like that flexibility. And I think down here, I think we all have the intelligence, I think we have the maturity, we have the discretion to understand what our limitations are when we do ask questions of the city solicitor. So, I'm fully supportive of it. Thanks.
Is there any, Councilor Frida?
Yeah, just to follow up on the councilor's comment, if it's a question that Copeland and Page feels like it should be given to the rest of the council, they'll answer that counselor to every counselor. So it's not something that's done in secrecy, that you run with information and do a ha-ha moment. It's done professionally, and it hasn't been abused for 24 years. That's the bottom line. And I can remember, quite honestly, being on the school committee and asking you questions as a city solicitor, and you gave me the answer. I mean, it wasn't a big issue.
Okay, Councilor Feckley?
That's not what he told me.
All right.
So I think that it's more transparent if we need to all agree, or the committee needs to agree, that as a body, we get the information at the same time. Because there's always going to be things that are lost in translation. And even if somebody says, I'm going to say it exactly the way he said or what have you, you're going to miss something. And as Councilor Bonanza indicated, we are a body. So individual people calling and getting information, and then maybe you heard it, maybe I didn't hear it, that's the reason why I'm supporting keeping this rule. And I think this is the reason why we approved the rule. It passed, right, about 6 months ago? It was not that long ago. So I think it can be a framework to keep things kind of in check. It's not that we are giving up the right to get the information from KP Law. It's that everybody knows that the information has been asked for, and we'll be waiting a response. And if we don't get the response, then we'll ask, where is it? Otherwise, we have all this radar going around, and nobody's, some people aren't picking up on it. So that's the reason for my recommendation.
Okay, Councilor Bonanza?
One more point. If we eliminate this rule, it doesn't prevent, and I suspect this has happened, that a counselor can contact Copeland and Page, ask a question related to something, might be on the agenda, it might not be, and that information could be pocketed for 2 weeks. It might never come to surface. We shouldn't be entitled to that? We shouldn't know what the question is when it's asked? And we shouldn't get the information when it's answered? I have a problem with that.
Okay, Councilor Frida?
Do we trust each other here? I mean, we're going to get information and pocket it? I mean, really, that is a really ludicrous statement, to be perfectly honest.
You think so?
I mean, you just said it earlier, that this is a political body. If you don't think somebody's calling up when they have an ulterior motive and pocket the information, I've been here 30 years. I've been through every kind of city council you can imagine sitting here. The good ones, the ones that get along, the ones that argue, been through it all. So to restrict my ability when I might be in a minority of councilors, that's not transparency to me. That's restriction. And I have the right to get an answer to a question. Simple as that. If Copeland's agreement 24 years ago was you have a question, you can ask it. 9 times out of 10, they don't even put it in writing because it's not a serious question. If it's a serious question, it comes to the council. So, I mean, we're making a lot more out of this with transparency and pocketing, and I don't know.
Okay, is there any other discussion on 1-18? Okay, so once again, the Ways and Means Committee's recommendation was to deny. And I guess I probably should do this in a roll call vote. Councilor Frida, do you want to deny it?
Vote to deny, right?
Right, yay would be to not deny it, and nay would be.
Wait a minute.
No.
Yea would be
No,
adoption.
yea,
Sorry, yay would be to
Deny it.
deny it,
Nay-
nay would be
nay
to
would be to
keep it
not
as is,
deny it.
to keep it as is.
right? Nay.
Right.
Right. Oh, wait,
Wait a minute.
No, it's
Wait
the
a
other
minute.
way around.
What?
The recommend, if I
The
may, the
recommendation
recommendation
is to
from
deny.
Ways and Means
Is
is
to
to deny
deny.
the petition.
So yay would deny it and
Nay
nay
would-
would
That's what I
leave it
said,
alone.
nay.
All right.
Nay.
That's what she
Nay.
said.
We'll just
Okay.
double check.
Counselor Dombrowski,
Nay.
Counselor Shalfo-Zephyr,
Nay.
Counselor Feckley,
Yay.
Counselor Bedanza,
Yay.
Counselor Anciani,
Yay.
Counselor Cormier,
Nay.
and Counselor Marchian.
Nay.
Okay, so by a vote of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 to 3,
Where's
this,
You voting?
What about you?
oh, and I'm gonna be a yay, sorry, 5, was it 5 to 4?
to
Sorry,
4.
5 to 4, this is not denied. So do we have another,
I'd like to make a motion to grant 1-18.
okay, so I have a motion on the floor and a second to grant 1-18, is there any discussion? Okay, all those in favor of granting one, is
Do
there?
roll call, please.
I'll do a roll call, Counselor, beginning with Counselor
Yay.
Frida. Counselor Dombrowski.
Yay.
Counselor Shalfo-Zephyr.
Yay.
Counselor Feckley.
Nay.
Counselor Bedanza.
Nay.
Counselor Lanciani.
Nay.
Counselor Cormier.
Yay.
Counselor Marchian.
Yay.
And I will be recorded as nay by a vote of 4 to 5. This is
Passed.
passed. 118 is passed. Okay, moving on to items under legal affairs, beginning with 69-17. Mr. Chairman, you ready to report?
I am. Petition 6917, Michael J. King, grant an easement for an existing driveway for the property located at 767 Willard Street. My understanding is that the petitioner, who's in somewhat of a dicey situation, has requested that we table this matter. Is that correct, Mr. President?
Yeah, that is correct, yep.
I don't have a problem tabling it, and I'll personally see that we pull it off the table in the next few months, and see where we are.
Right.
But
His-
if you could just poll my committee.
His attorney is still in discussion with the mayor to figure out which way to go. So if they need us, they'll let us know, we can take action.
Okay.
Counselor Frida, you in agreement?
I agree.
Okay.
I concur.
Counselor Marchian? Counselor Shalfo-Zephyr?
Yes.
Okay. Counselor Bedanza?
Yes.
Okay. So it's a unanimous recommendation by the Legal Affairs Committee to table 69-17. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor of tabling 69-17, please signify in usual manner. Those opposed, by a vote of 9 to 0, 69-17 has been tabled. Moving on to 82-17. Mr. Chairman, are you ready to report?
I am. Thank you, Mr. President. Petition 8217, Carolyn A. Parker for NJLJ Properties LLC, grant a license to store a total of 35,000 gallons, of which 26,000 gallons is gasoline and 9,000 gallons is diesel fuel at 180 Central Street. We had previously approved the zoning change for this project. We had a public hearing tonight relative to the storage, the underground storage of the gasoline and diesel fuel. We received recommendations from the fire department and the Board of Health, both in favor of this. I think it's an area that is going to be vastly improved from what's existing there now. So I'm in favor of it, and I'd ask you to poll my committee.
Counselor Frida?
I support it.
Counselor
I
Marchian?
concur.
Counselor Shalfo-Zephyr?
I don't. I didn't support the zoning change, and I'm not going to support this.
Okay. Counselor Bedanza?
I support it.
Okay, so it's the recommendation of Legal Affairs to grant 82-17. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor of granting 82-17, please signify in usual manner. Those opposed, by a vote of 8 to 1, 82-17 has been granted. Moving on to the City of Leominster's financial report. Mr. Chairman, do you have that
Yeah, it's,
ready to report?
I do, Mr. President. It's unchanged from the last meeting. Stabilization fund balance remains $14,517,854.57. I don't have an update what the pending matters, communications being passed tonight are coming out of there, so the balance will be reduced. And we ended the fiscal year with a free cash balance of $1,130,815, which will be returned to free cash when that's certified in fiscal 18.
Okay, So that is the City of Leominster's financial report. Is there any questions or comments? Seeing none, we will move on to items under finance, beginning with C-110. And just for the record, Councilor Cormier has left the chamber. She apparently had something
family
she had to
emergency.
attend to, so we now have 8 members present. So, Mr. Chairman of Finance, are you ready to report on C-110?
I am, Mr. President. C-110, relative to the appropriation of $1,085,399 to the street resurfacing expense account, same to be transferred from the highway state and receipts reserved for appropriation account. This was before us for action the last meeting, but unfortunately at that juncture, the state budget had not yet passed. That's changed since we met last. This, of course, is a Chapter 90 allocation, and it would be my position to support C-110. I'll check with my committee members.
Councilor Shalfo-Zephyr?
Do we have a list
I do.
of streets?
I do. It of course depends on what they get for bids back when it's finally bid, but if you want, it's a relatively short list. I can read it.
I'd like a copy of that, too.
Yeah, I'm happy to. I'll give you a copy before we leave. Would you like me to read it into the record as well?
Please do, yeah.
There's a portion of Central Street from Tossie Street to Union Street, Clark Street, entire length, Hall Street, Willow Street to Abbott Ave, Lorca Street, entire length, Mechanic Street, Fifth Ave to Florence Street, Pennacook Drive, entire length, Marguerite Ave, Railroad Tracks to Central Street, Weather Vane Drive, Grant Street to Jamestown Road, and Willow Street, Clark Street to Hall Street.
That, through the chair, that's helpful, but I would have liked to have had that in advance, because I had a note on my, I had a further time note, and then I had another note that said list of streets, and I thought I had asked about that.
It might have been my fault that I didn't get to
Okay.
that sooner, because I did have it at the last meeting.
Okay, well, I
As
would
I did- I
like a
think I
copy
mentioned
of
it.
that.
I'm
Yep.
happy to give it to you.
Thank you.
So you're all set?
I am,
Okay,
yeah.
And Councilor Marchand?
I concur, thank you.
Okay, so you've heard the unanimous recommendation of the Finance Committee to grant C-110. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor of granting C-110, please signify in the usual manner. Those opposed, by a vote of 8-0, C-110 has been granted. Does the chairman have an order?
Yes, Mr. President, in order that the sum of $1,085,399 be appropriated to the street resurfacing expense account, same to be transferred from the highway, state, and receipts reserved for appropriation account. Move for the adoption of the order.
Okay, you've heard the request for the adoption of the order. All those in favor of adopting the order, please signify by saying yea.
Yea.
Those opposed, by a vote of 8-0, C-110 has been adopted. Moving on to C-2.
C-2, relative to the appropriation of $55,000 to the school transportation expense account, same to be raised by fiscal year 2018 revenues. This is the city's allotment under McKinney-Vento. That's a 1987 federal statute that provided certain amounts for underprivileged children, and this in particular is for transportation. And this is done annually. It would be my position to grant C-2. I'll check with my committee members.
Okay. Councilor Shalfo-Zephyr?
Certainly, I am certainly going to support this, but do we have any backup, how many students this covers, how the amount was calculated? Can you get that?
Yes,
Thank
be
you.
happy to ask for that.
Okay,
Yep.
I'm going to hang on to this for the next meeting.
Okay.
So I'll vote for it tonight, but I do want the backup.
I will ask for that backup.
Thank you.
Councilor Marchand,
I
you all
concur.
set? Okay, so you've heard the unanimous recommendation of the Finance Committee to grant C-2. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor of granting C-2, please signify in the usual manner. Those opposed, by a vote of 8-0, C-2 has been granted. Does the chairman have an order?
Yes, Mr. President, order that the sum of $55,000 be appropriated to the school transportation expense account, same to be raised by fiscal year 2018 revenues. Move for the adoption of the order.
Okay, you've heard the request for the adoption of the order. All those in favor of adopting the order, please signify by saying yea.
Yea.
Those opposed, by a vote of 8-0, C-2 has been adopted. Moving items under public service, 2-18.
2-18, National Grid and Verizon New England, Inc. Central Street, Route 12, install 4 jointly owned poles on Central Street, Route 12, beginning at a point approximately 360 feet north of the center line of the intersection of Research Drive and Central Street, Route 12, and continuing approximately 90 feet in a northern direction. The petitioner has asked for a leave to withdraw, so that would be the recommendation.
Okay, you've heard the recommendation for leave to withdraw. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, and just for the record, I will not be voting on this because it doesn't, this piece of equipment involves my employer. But all those in favor of giving leave to withdraw, please signify in usual manner. Those opposed, by a vote of 7-0, 2-18 has been given leave to withdraw. Moving on to 3-18.
3-18, National Grid Research Drive in Central Street. Install underground electric conduits beginning at a point approximately 360 feet north of the center line of Research Drive in Central Street, Route 12, and continuing approximately 2,500 feet in a westerly direction. Also approximately 400 feet of concrete encased conduits and one manhole on west side of Central Street, Route 12 from pole 150-5. National Grid to petition for approximately 2,500 feet of concrete encased conduits and 9 manholes currently in Research Drive that were installed when the road is private, as well as 3 new roads crossing from manholes 4, 7, and 8. Again, the petitioner is requested leave to withdraw, so the recommendation is leave to withdraw without prejudice.
Okay, you've heard the recommendation of leave to withdraw. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor of giving leave to withdraw on 3-18, please signify in usual manner. Those opposed, by a vote of 8-0, excuse me, 3-18 has been given leave to withdraw. Do we have any items to come under old business? If so, I just have a couple. The President's Street Acceptance Committee, Councilor Shalfo-Zephyr had communicated to me via email that she not be on the committee anymore, so I have appointed Councilor Cormier from Ward 2 to be on that committee in her place, and I had advised her that I was doing that. So the city clerk will make that update. Also, too, the mayor has asked that something be read into the record, so I'm going to read this into the record. It's a letter dated July 24th, 2017, addressed to the Leominster City Council regarding the DOR review. We should all have a letter that he had given us. Members of the City Council, following the passage of the Leominster City Council resolution regarding the Department of Revenue, I met with the DOR on Thursday, July 20th, 2017. This was a preliminary meeting to discuss their range of services and which ones may be of benefit to Leominster. Immediately, however, the priority is to bring the Leominster School Department up to the same high fiscal management standards as the other departments in the city of Leominster and continue the upgrading and conversion to the Munis accounting system. Both of these will be labor-intensive and time-consuming. Here are some of the steps I plan to follow in the upcoming months. 1, complete a comprehensive audit of the school department. Each year we have an annual audit for both the school department and city. We will be following the process as usual, but with a more comprehensive audit for the school department this year to determine how to move forward, how to move toward fiscal accountability and better management. 2, continue the upgrading and conversion to the Munis accounting system. City and school employees work very hard to embrace new technology, comply with ever-increasing state and federal regulations, and meet high expectations in all aspects of local government. Again, this has and will continue to take a significant amount of staff time to complete this process. 3, institute municipal finance and best practices training for the Leominster School Department and Leominster School Committee. All aforementioned members and employees must have knowledge on how to develop a budget based on anticipated revenue, establish a priority budget, and set long-term goals. It is imperative that they are to create and manage a budget based on the principles of good municipal finance. We cannot formulate a city budget again without a line-item budget from the school department. 4, review the list of technical services that DOR offers and look at what is most applicable to the city of Leominster. Once the city and school department audits and Munis conversion are complete, then the finance team and I will meet with DOR and review the list of technical services DOR offers and match where they might be able to assist the city. I have learned that one of the challenges DOR faces is upon completion of the review, communities choose to simply not implement and recommend changes. For example, on several occasions, the DOR has found that too many people report directly to the mayor. They recommend creating a hierarchy amongst departments where, for instance, 5 department heads would report to one department head who would then in turn report to the mayor. Time and again, communities have attempted to implement this only to find increased animosity in a system that employees felt was working well before the DOR recommended changes. Or some simply don't like the recommendations and they don't follow through. Another example would be moving the elections division out of the city clerk's office to address concerns over city employees working for the city council and elections department simultaneously. Again, the purpose of my letter is to update you on my plan for working towards strong fiscal management of the school department and to address where the DOR may be able to assist us. If you have any questions, please do not hesitate to contact me. Sincerely, Dean J. Mazzarella, Mayor. So now that that is read into the record, does anybody else have any old business to come before the city council? Councilor Dabrowski.
Well, I really would just urge the mayor to get the DOR review done. You know, it's coming off like you don't want anyone looking underneath the hood. That's what it's coming off like to me. And the DOR review is not meant to be critical. It's, you know, it's meant to offer solutions, offer suggestions. I think a lot of what he says in his letter is good, but just get the review done. I mean, no offense, but I sat here and I asked our comptroller, you know, I couldn't get straight answers to straight questions. Just couldn't get it. So I really just think that given the circumstances, that needs to happen, and it should just be a straightforward process.
Okay. All right. Is there any other discussion, any other old business? Old business, Councilor Schaffel-Zephyr?
Yeah, I'm just going to echo the comments of the council at large to my left. I mean, I think the mayor should just, you know, have it done. If there's nothing to be concerned about, I mean, it could be just beneficial. I mean, they might have something, you know, one of the biggest problems that I've seen in this budget fiasco that we just have gone through is the lack of communication or the inability for people in the school business office to communicate with the city business office. I mean, that seems to be an ongoing concern. That's been a concern ever since I've been here. So that might be very simple. That might be a really easy fix. It's simple, it's painless. Let's just, you know, have the people come in, have the DOR come in. They've gone through many, many communities that we know that are neighbors, and they are helpful. They're not punitive. They are not critical. They come in to provide help and assistance. So I would encourage the mayor to do the same.
Okay, all right. Is there any other old business to come before the city council? No? Seeing none, is there any other new business to come before the city council?
We have a first reading.
Oh, yeah, thank you very much.
Yep, no
Jeez.
problem.
All right, yes, so we do have a first reading of an ordinance, and this will be referred to the Chairman of Legal Affairs.
Thank you, Mr. President. First reading of an ordinance, amend Chapter 13 of the revised ordinances entitled Motor Vehicles and Traffic by amending Section 1334 entitled No Parking on Certain Streets by inserting Wachusett Street, south side, from intersection with Pleasant Street for 450 feet west. This is formerly Legal Affairs Petition 8117. My recommendation is to adopt the first reading of the ordinance, Mr. President, and set a hearing for the second reading for August 14th, 2017 at 7:10 p.m.
Okay, so you've heard the recommendation to adopt the first reading of this ordinance and to establish a hearing for the second reading on August 14th, 2017 at 7:10 p.m. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, we will do this in a roll call vote, beginning with Councilor Frida.
Yay.
Councilor Dabrowski.
Yay.
Councilor Schaffel-Zephyr.
Yay.
Councilor Feckley.
Yay.
Councilor Bedanza.
Yay.
Councilor Lanciani.
Yay.
Councilor Marchian.
Yay.
And I will be recorded as yay by a vote of 8-0. The first reading of this ordinance has been adopted. Is there any other new business to come before the City Council? Councilor Marchian.
A couple announcements real quick. This one's a little bit time sensitive. The Leominster football season is going to have 5 home games in a row. The varsity, JV, and freshmen are off campus, but that's different from previous years. And what's happening is they put together, the Leominster Football Club puts together a program, commemorative type of program that everyone enjoys, and we're looking for advertisements in that program right now, so it is very time sensitive. We're going to be working with Precision Printing in Leominster, and they're going to start the printing of the process actually on August 1st. So if anyone would like to contribute to that, they can reach me through the clerk's office, and we'll get you paperwork immediately. Second thing is, they have a website, and according to Infinite Design, we've had over 1.2 million hits last year alone. That's amazing for a high school football team. So there's a lot of things in there about the athletics and the program in general. You can also visit it by going to leominster.com, and it's the first thing that gets pulled up right there, defaults of that. So that's also part of the advertising package. We'd like to thank all the previous sponsors from past years and all the new ones. We picked up 15 brand-new companies today, so we really appreciate that. The other part is the Johnny Appleseed Festival. Right now, just for the people that are thinking about getting into it, we have 74 spaces already reserved. So it's getting tight, and we still have over 60 days left before we get there. But if you'd like to become a vendor, you can contact the mayor's office or the clerk office for an application. Very pleased to announce that the Leominster High School Theater Arts Program is putting on a performance in the City Hall simultaneously with that event. So we're looking forward to the kids pulling something together in a very short 3-week period of time. So that'll be happening. So if you'd like to become a vendor or a sponsor, we need sponsorship money badly. You can also make a contribution in both. The city's not a 501c, but we are a nonprofit, and the football club is a 501c. So you can take advantage of the tax donation as well. Thank you.
Okay. Is there any other new business? Anything under the community calendar? No? Okay, and we do have one tabled petition upon which action is proposed, and it's an item under legal affairs, 35-17.
Thank you.
Do you want to read it, and then we can take a vote to
Sure.
see if we take it off the table?
Sure. Thank you, Mr. President. Petition 3517, Kristen Kelly on behalf of the Planning Board. Modify Section 22-50.4.1 of the Leominster zoning ordinance to remove the words "shall service no more than 2 lots" and replace with "are not permitted." It's been some, more than a little controversy with this one. Councilor Bedanza had drafted.
First, maybe we should take a vote.
Oh, yeah,
before
you're
we
right,
talk
yeah.
about take a vote to take it off the table.
Okay, we could,
Okay.
I'd ask that it be taken off the table for discussion.
Okay, all those in favor of taking 35-17 off the table for action, please signify in usual manner. Those opposed, by a vote of 8-0, 35-17 has been taken off the table for action. Mr. Chairman, if you...
Yeah, thank you. There's been, no shortage of controversy with this, and I think a lot of it stems from the fact that it's a reaction to one project. I know Councilor Bedanza had submitted to me an ordinance that he drafted that I thought was good and very workable, but it's not something that, it's so different than this. 2 things. One, it's very different than this. I don't think we can amend it to add that. And secondly, I'd like to give Ms. Kelly the opportunity to review it and, and get her blessing and edits on it, because I think she has been working very hard with a lot of these different ordinances. So I'll ask you to poll my committee. I mean, my personal feeling would be to give 3517 leave to withdraw and start all over with a new petition, along the lines of what Councilor Bedanza has drafted. On the other hand, what we could do is we could give it further time and set up a subcommittee meeting and discuss them. So I'll just ask you to poll my committee. My position would be to just give it leave to withdraw at this point.
Okay. Councilor Frida?
I would agree with giving it further time. I mean, Kristen Kelly's on behalf of the planning board, so I'd like to see her, give her time to go back to the planning board, see what their recommendation is, and then if they agree with looking over the other draft, then you can give this one leave to withdraw and accept the other one.
So for, okay, you pull the balance of the committee?
Council Marchian?
With justification on it? You want to know why?
Need a recommendation.
Okay, so I would like to see it given leave to withdraw without prejudice.
Okay.
I'll
All right.
explain when we have the
Okay.
opportunity.
Okay, so one wants leave to withdraw, one wants further time, one wants leave to withdraw. Councilor Shalfo Zephyr?
I'd give it leave to withdraw and start over.
Okay. Councilor Bedanza?
I would go with further time because Kristen has suggested to me that the planning board has discussed this since I think my proposal. So I think we ought to give her the opportunity to come down here and see what the planning board's current view is. I mean, I think we're in partnership with them on this, so I'd like to hear what they have to say.
Okay. So 3 want leave to withdraw, 2 want further time, so I think leave to withdraw is the recommendation.
It's the recommendation.
Okay, so you've heard the recommendation of the Legal Affairs Committee to give 35-17 leave to withdraw without prejudice. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor of giving 35-17 leave to withdraw without prejudice, please signify in usual manner. Hold on, 1, 2, 3, 4. And all those again opposed? 2, 3, 4. So it's a 4-4 vote. So leave to withdraw without prejudice does not pass. So what do we do? We gotta
Further time doesn't pass either.
No.
Put it back on the table?
Somebody's gonna make another motion.
I'm gonna make a motion to give it leave to withdraw without prejudice.
Okay.
I'm gonna bring it back. If I
Okay.
can get a second on it now.
Second.
Okay, so there's another motion, a second, to give it leave to withdraw without prejudice. Council Marchand.
Mr. President, I understand the magnitude of why this was actually authored. I think we all became aware of a situation that took place up in the Ward 4 area, I believe. And it was a good reaction by the planning director and the planning board to work the problem. When that first came before us, I had opposition from one particular engineer that was very convincing. And it was just simple words that had to be changed in the actual petition. And what happened was I gave that to the planning director at a planning board meeting. It never made it to the table, and it never made it to this table down here, and I don't understand why. But I think it was a simple solution to the problem, and it wasn't something that changed the face of the language significantly. My colleague from Ward 4, in a situation to try to deal with it, came up with a great blueprint, but at the same time, I think it's basically a significant change or alteration of the original petition, and we're talking about an ordinance change here. So, my position is to just give it leave to withdraw, and if that's what surfaces at the end of the day, I'll deal with it, it's not an issue. But the problem is, keep in mind, when we see legislation like that come before us, people do not get grandfathered in on building permits. They get denied. So what happens is we have a situation in this city right now that I've been told, I can't qualify it, to be honest with you, but there are a couple of legitimate applicants where it's not the same scenario that took place in Ward 4. It's significantly different. And what's happened is they have been denied building permits in order to move forward because we have legislation that's tied up down in the council chambers. So we're the ones that at the end of the day, are in a situation where we can't take this to a vote because the planning board hasn't cleaned it up yet for us to take a peek at. And as we know, even if we passed it, we still have readings to deal with and recommendations back from the city solicitor, et cetera. So it's a long process. So my position is, let's give this one leave to withdraw, get the other one before us as soon as we can, but at least have the new language that makes sense, and it is not a major modification of the original submission. So that's my position.
Okay, Council Bedanza.
So to try to distill this, there are 3 possibilities, correct? A, if we give this leave to withdraw, we're back to the original ordinance which produced Low Street in my ward, which was by all counts a disaster, which I think is the least desirable alternative of the 3 is to stick with the status quo. The other option is to follow the planning board recommendation, which is to eliminate common driveways totally. And then you wouldn't have the circumstances that you have with respect to what happened in Ward 4, but that would potentially eliminate certain types of development in the city in the future. The third alternative is an ordinance similar to what I have drafted, where common driveways would be permitted, but by special permit. The current ordinance does not require a special permit. So they're just by right available to a developer. The special permit process would at least put some controls on the use of a piece of land with common driveways, such things as having a plan in place so the ultimate neighbors could get along, things of that nature, which I think would be desirable, far desirable than what we have currently. So it's one of the three. I think if we give this thing leave to withdraw, we put ourselves back to the least desirable alternative. And I think by giving it further time, what we do is we're not going to kick the can down the road. We're going to deal with it. We're going to have Kristen down here. We're going to make a decision one way or another, which I think ultimately, for me at least, the decision is either eliminate common driveways in Leominster or permit them by special permit. I think going forward with what we have is the least desirable of the three alternatives. And by giving the current measure leave to withdraw, we're encouraging the continuation of the least desirable alternative.
Okay, is there any other discussion on giving 35-17 leave to withdraw without prejudice? Councilor Frida.
I kind of agree with that scenario. And in fairness to Kristen and the planning board, you know, she's worked a lot on this. She's taken some advice. She's come down here with the public hearing. We've given her other ideas. I just think 2 more weeks, 3 weeks isn't going to change things, to give it further time, let the planning board have a discussion.
Okay, Councilor Marchand.
If we're going to see something in 2 weeks, I'll go along with it. If we're not going to see anything, because they didn't have a quorum, or because it's just, you know, it's just taking longer than they thought, I'm going to disagree with that. I think something has to happen in all fairness to people in general. By the way, I would adopt the councilor from Ward 4's legislation tonight if that was before us, but it's not. That's the problem. And I don't want to tie people up. I don't think it's fair to people that, you know, are trying to find a process to go through. So if we can do this in 2 weeks, I'll go along with further time. But if it comes down in 2 weeks and they're not ready to be able to do something with it at that point, I think we need to move.
Okay, all right. Is there any other discussion? Councilor Dombrowski.
I can hold a subcommittee meeting next Monday. It's an off Monday if people are available. I'm free that night. I just check my calendar, so I could do it as early or as late as anybody wants.
It's fine with me.
Yeah, I don't know how anyone else is looking.
Well, through the chair, we still need Kristen's involvement in
Yeah,
this.
planning board.
I mean, well, we're just going to have a
Give that to
discussion
the planning board.
on what's before us right now in some of the things that have been submitted.
Well, we need her involvement ultimately, but at least we can get a direction on how we feel about it if she's not able to attend. I mean, I'd like to discuss, you know, the merits of this and also have Councilor Bedanza's petition. I'll make copies for everybody so they can review it, and at least, you know, we can get a head start on it.
Well,
All right,
I think she would.
Councilor Bedanza.
I think she'd make herself available to us. So I don't know what her schedule's like, but I think having her involvement in that subcommittee meeting might be beneficial to us.
Through the chair, when we take a safety vote on that, just a request.
Okay. Well, first we got to deal with this motion, which is to give this leave to withdraw without prejudice. So that's
I'm
the
gonna
discussion.
withdraw my
You're
motion.
going to withdraw your motion, so then we need to put another motion on the floor then.
No, we
I'll
don't.
make a motion for further time.
Okay, all right, so now we have a motion and a second for further time. Is there any discussion on giving 35-17 further time? Okay, so seeing none, all those in favor of giving 35-17 further time, please signify in the usual manner. Those opposed, by a vote of 8-0, 35-17 has been given further time. Is there any other business to come before the city council?
Well,
Councilor
just-
Martian, did you make a request?
I'm gonna add, first, through the chair, if I may, that Mr. Chairman can set up a subcommittee meeting, then you can ask for a vote.
Yeah.
to
Is
bring
that-
Kristen
does that
Kelly down?
Monday, does next Monday work?
You know, is there another night you could do it? That's gonna be tight for me.
I could do
Can I
it,
interrupt for a second? Doesn't the planning board meet next Monday?
I don't know.
They must. I think you're right.
So maybe we should make it
We have-
after Monday.
We have a 3-week break, so maybe if you do
We've
it
got
Then you
like,
have an
yeah.
idea what
if you
day.
do it like the week of August 7th, it might give them a chance to meet
Sure.
again too.
I
and
could
then-
do August 7th.
Or that, sometime that week. you
It's
know.
fine with me. We have a library meeting that night, but as long as it's 6 or later, I think Susan,
Yep.
Council Shalfo and I can do it.
What
On the
night?
7th, John?
August 7th works, yeah.
Yeah, okay.
What night are you
6
doing?
o'clock?
August 7th, Monday.
All right,
August 17th?
7th.
Seven.
at 6? At 6 PM?
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, so that subcommittee meeting will
It's hard to
be
believe we're getting close to Monday night football preseason stuff.
No, I don't
August 7th at 6 PM. And also, there's a street acceptance subcommittee meeting this coming Thursday. What's Thursday, the 27th at 6
6,
as well? Okay. All right, is there any other business to come before the city council?
Just take a vote on having Ms.
Oh,
Kelly.
yeah,
come back.
and a vote to bring Kristen Kelly down on August 7th at 6 PM subcommittee meeting. All those in favor of bringing her down, please signify in the usual manner. Those opposed, by a vote of 8-0, the city clerk will communicate that to Ms. Kelly. Is there any other business to come before the city council? Seeing none, I'll ask for a motion and a second to adjourn. Motion and a second. All those in favor of adjourning, please signify in the usual manner. Those opposed? Okay, the city council meeting for July 24th, 2017 is now adjourned. Thank you all very much.